My name is Emily Ford, and I'm 42 years old. I live with my 46-year-old husband, Bob, and our daughter, Anne, who is 2. Ever since our daughter was born, Bob has been coming home earlier from work, and he spends his weekends fully devoted to us. I was surprised at how much of a doting father he's turned out to be, but I'm happy.
Hey, Emily. It seems like our TV broke again. Could you ask Bob to come over and help?
I have a sister, Julie, who is 2 years older than me. She's raising her 6-month-old son as a single mom. Since Bob is good with fixing things, he often helps out when Julie runs into problems like this. Sorry for always asking Bob to help out with my sister's stuff.
Don't worry, Emily. She's your sister.
Bob never complains and always helps when something comes up. I'm incredibly grateful for my caring husband. Plus, there's a reason we can't say no to Julie's requests.
I had him tested, and it turns out that my son, Ken, has ADHD. I can't believe that, after having a child as a single mom, he'd have a disorder.
ADHD is a developmental disorder. It can involve attention issues, hyperactivity, and behavior that's different from most kids. Julie started noticing something was off when Ken was just over a month old. His tantrums were so intense that she ended up taking him to the doctor. Right now, the symptoms are mild, but as he grows, he's expected to face more challenges. Difficulty sitting still, forgetfulness, and emotional swings. When the doctor explained everything, Julie was devastated.
How am I supposed to handle this all by myself from now on?
Since she doesn't have a partner, Bob and I agreed that we'd step in to help if things got tough. Julie was spoiled by our mom growing up, so she's not used to handling things on her own.
If you get hurt, I'll take care of it for you. After all, Julie is a girl, and it's okay for others to look after her.
Being the first child, our parents doted on Julie. In contrast, I was the second child, so they didn't pay me much attention. Julie, having been raised like a princess, often relies on others before trying to solve problems on her own. I'm willing to overlook this because of my nephew's situation, but part of me feels like she leans on Bob too much. Lately, she's been calling him for help more often, and it doesn't sit well with me.
Emily, I'm sorry, but the microwave stopped working.
Again? Didn't Bob just fix it last time?
But it's still not working. Could you ask Bob to come over again?
Julie has been calling Bob more frequently after work, and on some nights, he even stays for dinner at her place, depending on when he finishes. Lately, when I try to talk to him, he seems distracted. I had a bad feeling one day. Ding dong. While I was making dinner, the doorbell rang. When I looked at the front door monitor, I saw my sister, Julie. What's going on? Why are you here so late?
Emily, please. I need you to take care of Ken for just a couple of days, please.
Take care of him? You can't just spring this on me. I have my 2-year-old daughter, Anne, here too, and I need to check with Bob. Julie looked pale and said she needed a break, even if just for a little while. When I called Bob, he said that if Julie was feeling stressed, it couldn't be helped, and so, unexpectedly, we ended up taking care of my nephew.
There's milk and diapers in the bag, and a change of clothes too. I'll pick him up in 2 or 3 days.
Got it, but make sure you come back in 2 or 3 days.
Thanks so much, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Without even looking at Ken, Julie left. At that moment, I thought, Since she's raising a child with special needs all by herself, of course, she'd get overwhelmed sometimes and need a break. But 2 or 3 days passed, and Julie didn't come to pick up her son. To make matters worse, on the third night of having Ken, Bob didn't come home either. I couldn't figure out what was going on until I got an email from him in the middle of the night.
I'm leaving with Julie. The divorce papers are in the drawer. Please take care of everything.
What? This has to be a joke. I immediately called Bob.
The number you have dialed is no longer in service.
His phone had been disconnected. I called Julie too, but her phone was also disconnected. They had abandoned me, leaving behind the divorce papers and my nephew with special needs. The next day, I went straight to Julie's apartment, but it was completely empty.
Julie Turner said she was moving overseas because of her husband's jobs.
When I contacted the apartment manager, that's what I was told. By husband, they must have meant Bob. I contacted my parents, but they didn't know anything either. Tucked inside the divorce papers was a note that read, "I can't raise a child with special needs." Suddenly, I was left to raise 2 kids on my own, so I asked my dad to help me find a daycare, and I started working again. I tried calling Bob and Julie several more times, but I never got through. Unlike my mom, my dad had always been kind to me growing up.
Your mom and I are living on retirement, but don't worry. We'll help with 2 kids however we can.
My dad helped a lot, like taking the kids to daycare, and he supported me with everything outside of work.
That's so typical of Julie. She must have found a man who would protect her, even if it meant abandoning her child.
My mom's personality hadn't changed, and she was still saying things that made no sense. Dad, after so many years with her, seemed resigned and a little exhausted by it all.
If we were younger, we could do more to help. But I'm sorry, this is all we can do.
That's not true. I couldn't do it on my own, so I'm grateful you're helping out, Dad. If my nephew had been someone else's child, I could have placed him in foster care. But to me, he's my sister's child, and to my parents, he's their grandchild. While my mom was no help, I decided to raise him with my dad's support. Why did they run off together? How could Julie abandon her own child? Even though I'm angry with them, there's no one to direct that anger toward now. I'm fine. I can do this on my own. Several years have passed, and the kids are now in elementary school. I waited 2 or 3 years, but since there was no contact and nothing changed, I finally submitted the divorce papers that had been prepared back then and finalized our divorce. I considered hiring a private investigator, but with the kids needing money now, I couldn't afford to waste it on that. My daughter, Anne, is now in 4th grade, and my nephew, Ken, is in 2nd grade. As for Ken, although he occasionally behaves oddly, I haven't had too much trouble.
It's your turn now, Ken. Shuffle the cards.
Got it. Let's play doubt next.
Since my daughter was only 2 when Bob left, she doesn't really remember him. My nephew, of course, has no memory of the situation and actually thinks I'm his real mom. The 2 kids believe they are real siblings. They don't know the truth yet, but I plan to tell them when they're older. What surprises me more, though, is Ken's incredible memory. Anne has always had a good memory, but Ken's memory is just as sharp, even though he's only in 2nd grade.
Sometimes people with disabilities have exceptional skills in certain areas.
The doctor said during one of Ken's checkups. Though he occasionally throws tantrums or acts out, He's still sweet and affectionate with me, just like any other kid. It's not always easy, and I do get exhausted, but seeing Anne and Ken enjoying themselves makes me happy. Perhaps I am suited to parenting. And I found myself hoping for something from Ken's hidden talents.
Mom, the playing cards got torn, so let's go buy new ones.
Oh, they got torn?
Ken ripped them because he didn't want to lose.
Ken, that's not okay. You need to learn how to accept losing.
I'm sorry.
One day, when the kids told me the cards were torn, we went to the shopping mall to buy new ones. That's when someone approached us.
Does your children belong to any modeling agencies?
No, they don't. The person, who is a manager from a modeling agency, asked if Anne and Ken would like to try modeling. Anne, Ken, how about it? Do you want to give modeling a try?
We'd get to wear nice clothes, right? I'd love to try it.
I'll do it with Anne.
Since they seemed interested, I decided to let them model, but only on their days off from school. Both my daughter and nephew were taller than other kids their age, with great looks and figures. I told the manager about my nephew's disability.
That's not a problem at all. In fact, there are plenty of models and actors with developmental disorders.
The manager said, surprisingly accepting of the situation, which put me at ease. At first, they only appeared in small sections on the corner of magazine pages. However, by the time my daughter and nephew reached adulthood, they had both become famous Paris Fashion Week models, even appearing on TV. Then, 20 years after my husband and sister disappeared, something happened.
I want to go shopping for clothes today. Will you come with me?
Sure, let's head out now.
Oh, we're eating out for lunch? Lucky me.
It was a rare day when both Anne and Ken had the day off, so we decided to go shopping together. A few days before, after they both turned 18, I finally told them the truth about Bob and Julie. I explained to Ken that I wasn't his real mom, and that Anne and Ken weren't actually siblings by blood. But neither of them seemed too surprised. They acted remarkably normal about it.
Even if we're not related by blood, family is still family.
Mom, you're still Mom. And Anne is still my big sister.
They accepted it just as it was, and nothing changed between us. In fact, their reaction helped me more than I could have imagined. We had just arrived at the department store and were browsing for clothes when it happened.
Bob, you sure love to eat, don't you?
Julie does too. Watch out, you're going to spill.
I froze as I heard the familiar voices. The voices walked past me.
Mom?
Is something wrong, Mom?
I knew right away. The people who had just passed by were my husband and sister. They were wearing hats pulled low over their faces, but Bob has a distinct feature. 2 moles side by side under his right cheek. I immediately turned around and called out to them. Bob, Julie. Their bodies tensed up the moment I called their names, but they didn't stop walking. I ran up to them and grabbed Julie's arm. Wait, Julie, Bob, stop. I stood in front of them, blocking their path. When I got a closer look, there was no doubt. It was them. After 20 years, I had finally run into my husband and sister by chance.
Well, if it isn't Emily. Long time no see.
Emily, you scared me calling out like that all of a sudden.
They both looked like they were in trouble, trying to act calm as if nothing had happened. Seeing them after 20 years brought back all the anger I had buried deep inside. It's not a long time, Bob. You disappeared without a word. What have you been doing all this time?
What have I been doing? Just living a happy, normal life.
Why didn't you ever reach out? You both canceled your phones and cut off all contact. Didn't it bother you at all to abandon your own children? All the feelings I'd held back over the years came rushing out. No matter how much I said, it still didn't feel like enough. I realized just how much I had bottled up for the last 20 years. But then Bob said something shocking.
Did you dump those expensive brats yet?
Bob burst out laughing, saying the unthinkable. How could he talk about our children like that? My anger reached its peak. They abandoned their own kids without a care. I had raised them, but what if I hadn't been able to? What would have happened to the kids? I took a deep breath to calm myself and spoke. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't dump them. I raised them into fine adults. When Bob and Julie looked at our now grown son, they were stunned. Bob glanced at my daughter and looked shocked.
And this girl?
This is Ken, Julie's son, and she is Anne, your daughter. Anne and Ken glared at Bob and Julie with cold eyes. The two of them stood there, mouths hanging open. It made sense. By now, everyone knew who Anne and Ken were. They were famous models who appeared in commercials and TV dramas. They were the trendiest models of the moment, adored by young people everywhere.
This boy is Ken.
And this girl is my daughter Anne?
That's right. Is there a problem with that?
But Ken is the famous model, right?
And Anne is the popular model too, right?
I can't believe you raised these two, Emily.
More importantly, why did you two disappear? I asked again, while Bob and Julie were still staring at the kids. Bob finally opened his mouth, like he was annoyed.
I mean, you must have known about me and Julie, right?
What?
You were always so worried when I went to Julie's house. You must have noticed something was going on.
If you knew that I knew, why didn't you stop?
Well, Julie's prettier and has a better figure, you know.
It was true. Ever since we were kids, Julie had been the beautiful one, always getting attention. Compared to her, I am normal, not beautiful, and not cute. I think my nephew inherited all of my sister's beauty. My daughter's height and sharp features are just like my husband's. But even so, how could you just disappear without a word? If you wanted a divorce, we should have talked about it.
Yeah, but would you have agreed to a divorce if we had?
Of course not. We have a kid. I couldn't just say yes to that. And both of you, how could you abandon your children without feeling anything? I can't forgive you for that.
We couldn't help it. We were too wrapped up in each other to care.
What? You were their parents. How could you be so selfish? They knew I had noticed their affair and didn't stop, like they enjoyed the fact I was aware. To them, abandoning their kids was just a consequence of being too focused on each other. Even if I admit I'm not as beautiful as Julie, abandoning the kids for that reason is beyond selfish. The more I listened, the more disgusted I became, and my anger only grew. Then Julie said something even more appalling.
Besides, Ken had a disability, right? Anyone would want to raise a normal child. I couldn't handle it back then. But you raised him wonderfully, so it all worked out.
Wait, do you even hear yourself? Julie looked at Ken and continued.
Ken, it looks like you've turned out all right now. You should be grateful to me, you know. You became a model thanks to my looks, even if I didn't raise you.
Julie, what are you saying? Apologize to Ken. Slap. Before I knew it, I had slapped Julie across the face.
Ow, what are you doing?
What do you think children are? They're not objects. They're human beings. You and Bob destroyed their lives. You're the ones who should be apologizing. I won't let you hurt them anymore. That's when Bob chimed in.
You say you won't forgive us, but you're not even Ken's real mom, right? So what's with all the fake mom drama?
Yeah, exactly. I'm Ken's real mom, so I have the right to say what I want.
It's actually funny. Bob and Julie, what do you even like about each other? You're both so awful. I can't find a single reason why you'd choose to cheat to be together. For the past 20 years, Anne, Ken, and I have lived together, supporting each other. I've raised Ken as my own son, through every joy and every hardship. Do you have any idea how I felt raising them all these years? All I ever wanted was for them to be happy. You abandoned them without a care, so don't you dare call yourselves parents. I hadn't intended to cry, but tears began streaming down my face. After everything we'd been through, I wasn't about to let them act like they had any right to take the kids back. When my dad passed, the kids were the ones who got me through it. Even though we're not related by blood, Anne, Ken, and I are my family.
Is that all? I do want to thank you for raising Ken. You did a great job in my place. But this little pretend family is over. Ken will be living with me from now on, so just forget he ever existed.
Yeah, right. Ken is Julie's son, so it's only natural. And Anne, do you want to come live with me?
That's a great idea. You've done your part, Emily. Now it's our turn. You can relax and enjoy your freedom.
It's sudden, but it's the start of a new family.
Neither of them showed any regret or remorse for abandoning their children. Instead, they acted like it was time to thank me and then hand the kids back to them. They didn't even ask what the kids wanted, just assumed they could force this change. Their attitude, treating the kids like objects, infuriated me. What makes you think you can just take them? I'm not giving them up, and if we're going to talk about living arrangements, we're going to respect what the kids want.
If you refuse to let him go, Ken is still my son. So doesn't that make you a kidnapper, Emily? Should I call the police?
What kind of people are you? Technically, Julie was right. Legally, Ken and I were unrelated. But for the past 20 years, I had raised him with love and care. Even if they reported me to the police as a kidnapper, I would still have all the happy memories of raising him. Seeing me hesitate, Julie pulled out her phone and started pretending to dial.
Well, I guess I have no choice but to call the police.
Looks like we'll have to let the police handle it.
She began dialing the police. But then...
What?
Ken suddenly let out a loud scream. I rushed over to him, hugging him tightly to calm him down. When Ken faces too much stress, he has panic attacks. He had been doing well lately, but it must have been the stress of today.
You're not my mom.
Huh?
My only mom is Emily.
Ken glared at Julie, starting to speak his mind. With a pained expression, He glared at Julie.
What's wrong with him, yelling like that all of a sudden?
Ken has learned how to live with his condition.
Oh, really? Well, whenever he has a panic attack, you can help. But Ken, you should know that Emily isn't your real mom. I'm the one who gave birth to you, so you should be thanking me.
Don't act like you have the right to say anything. You abandoned me. There's no way I'm living with you. And I don't even remember your face. You're just a worthless old hag.
Worthless old hag?
Even though Ken still sometimes has panic attacks, he's much calmer as an adult than he was as a child. He's a gentle person and never lashes out at anyone. Since he was only 6 months old when he was left with me, it's no surprise he doesn't remember Julie and doesn't see her as his mom. I couldn't help but laugh as Julie stood there, shocked after being called a worthless old hag by her own son.
I'll never forgive you for hurting my real mom.
Ken, she is not your real mom. Emily is just my sister. She only took care of you because you're my child.
Then Anne stepped in.
You two are so selfish. You're just strangers to us. You and this guy are nothing but strangers. Blood relation? You abandoned us and want to use that as a reason? How ridiculous.
Hey, watch your mouth, kid.
Kid? I'm an adult. Thank you very much. And besides, abandoning your kids and running off together is what a child would do. And now, after decades, you expect us to just live with you? Are you stupid? Even if we were related by blood, living with people we've never known is insane.
Bob and Julie blinked in shock, speechless after Anne's blunt words. I wanted to applaud her for standing up to them like that.
You've grown up to be a very cocky child.
And your dad is the company president now. If you live with me, you'll never have to worry about money.
No need to worry. Ken and I both make plenty of money on our own.
Well, if you two live with us, I'll make sure to take care of Emily too.
That won't be necessary either, because right now, our agency's president is Mom.
What?
Really?
Actually, after seeing my kids work as models from a young age, I became interested in management and applied for a job. When the agency found out I was their mother, they hired me right away. Since then, I've gained experience and eventually started my own agency, becoming the president of the modeling agency that represents both of my children. Like they said, you guys can live with them.
I wouldn't live with these terrible kids even if I were dead.
I want to erase the fact that this trashy man is my dad from my memory.
How dare you speak to your parents like that?
Exactly. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us?
Then why did you abandon me?
That's because
Spit it out.
it was because of your disability, Ken.
I don't even remember you, so I don't hold a grudge anymore. But what you did, abandoning your child, that's just as bad as child neglect and abuse. I'll never forgive you for that. Never show up in my life again. Don't you ever claim to be my mom? I only have one mom in this world, and that's Emily. After today, I'm forgetting you ever existed, and you should do the same. I mean it.
Ken expressed himself calmly, without panic, as he learned the real reason his mom abandoned him. Even though he now knew why, he didn't lose his cool. Julie, on the other hand, was speechless, overwhelmed by what her son had said.
And why did you abandon Mom and me? What was so special about this woman that you chose her over us?
Well, Back then, I couldn't think about anything but Julie. Once you're older, Anne, you'll understand your dad's feelings.
I don't care to understand, and honestly, I don't remember your face enough to even hate you. But if you hurt my mom any further, you'll regret it. I'm erasing you from my life today, so you'd better forget about me too. Permanently.
Ken was glaring at my sister, and Anne was giving her father the same intense stare. The tense, heavy atmosphere lingered for a moment.
Mom, it must have been so hard to raise me with my disability, right? Even though we're not related by blood. Thank you for raising me all this time.
When I was struggling with bullying, Mom was always there for me. She helped me through it, always laughing and crying with me. I'm so grateful.
I want to stay with you, Mom.
I might get married one day, but for now, I still want to be with you, Mom.
The kids expressed their gratitude to me. That alone makes me feel completely happy. Ken, you don't need to worry about your disability. You are who you are, and I'm so proud of you. And Anne, you're such a kind, considerate person. You and Ken are my most precious treasures. Perhaps bored with our heartfelt exchange, Bob and Julie tried to forcefully drag the kids away.
All right, enough of this drama.
Let's go.
I said I'm not going anywhere.
Don't touch me. Let go.
From a distance, I heard the sound of several people running towards us.
Where's the scene? Over there. Please catch those two.
The police and security guards rushed over to where Bob and Julie were pulling the kids.
Hey, let go of their arms. They're clearly resisting.
What? I'm his mother.
Forcing someone against their will is a crime.
Me? I'm his father.
Not understanding what was happening, Bob and Julie were restrained by the police and security guards. A group of young people were showing the police something on their phones.
Stop doing things that Anne and Ken don't want.
Yeah, they clearly don't want to go with you.
Before I knew it, a crowd had gathered, and I was surprised. It turned out that some of Anne and Ken's fans had witnessed the scene, filmed it, and called the police. Bob and Julie were taken away by the police.
I'm their family.
I'm not a criminal.
Yeah, tell us at the station.
Bob and Julie turned to us.
We're family, right? Say something.
I'm her ex-husband, and I just want to.
But when the police asked, I replied, they're strangers to us. Julie became hysterical, and Bob started saying nonsensical things as they were dragged away, completely disoriented. Ken smiled at the fans who had gathered.
Did you all help us out? Thank you so much.
Thanks for helping. But could I ask you to delete that video?
The fans squealed with excitement, shouting, "Oh!" at Anne and Ken, and happily deleted the video, explaining that they had only filmed it for them. After taking some photos with the fans, we finally headed in. The kids also filed claims, and in the end, both of them were left with enormous debts, plunging them into poverty. With a lawyer involved, there was no way for them to escape, and we even secured a restraining order, ensuring they wouldn't bother us again. Julie had intended to rely on her mom, but after her sudden passing, she found herself with no allies. Sometime after, Ken and I went through the adoption process, and we officially became mother and son. Nothing really changed, though we were already happy. Lately, Anne and Ken have grown even more popular and busier than ever. Next month, we're starting a new chapter and moving overseas to begin our new life together. I'm excited to keep seeing my family's smiles every day and looking forward to the future.
Family? A woman who walked out on us is just a stranger. Go back. You're not family to us anymore.
What? I was completely dumbfounded by those words. I had gone through great lengths to take a day off and come back for her birthday celebration, but I never imagined I'd be greeted with such verbal abuse. And that wasn't the end of Karen's outrageous behavior.
Did you really think buying this stuff would make everything okay?
With those words, she kicked the gifts I had brought. The pile of carefully chosen presents tumbled to the ground with a loud thud. Karen then mercilessly stomped on them. Unforgivable. That was the only emotion that welled up inside me. This wasn't the time to let sadness or shock consume me. I was an adult now, having just celebrated my milestone birthday, yet Karen was still acting as selfishly as ever. Determined to teach her a lesson, I made up my mind to take action. My name is Anna Miller. I'm 28 years old. Growing up, I was known as a cheerful and lively person, loved by neighbors and relatives alike. But even I had my struggles. One of them was the fact that I didn't have any siblings. Among my friends, I was the only one who was an only child. I desperately wanted a little sister. Looking back now, my parents weren't exactly young when I was born. My mom was 32, and my dad was 37. I was always meant to be an only child. Even though I constantly begged for a sibling, having a second child couldn't have been an easy decision for my parents. But perhaps my relentless requests swayed them. When I was 8, my wish finally came true, and my baby sister was born. We named her Karen. In fact, I was so thrilled about her arrival that I even chose her name. I welcomed Karen with open arms and was overjoyed to finally become a big sister. Thus, I grew up as the older sibling in a family of 2 sisters. I adored Karen. As a baby, I'd change her diapers, feed her baby food, and take care of her like a little mom. Karen was more attached to me than our parents and would follow me everywhere when she was little. But that changed when Karen started elementary school and she began to push me away.
You're so annoying. Stop picking me up.
At the time, I was in high school. Since my school let out around the same time Karen's dance class ended, it became my routine to pick her up and walk home together. But Karen started to hate me coming to get her.
I can't make it on time.
Since Mom worked part-time, it was impossible for her to pick up Karen after dance class. I was the only one who could do it, but Karen's complaints caused trouble for Mom.
I can walk home by myself.
But we agreed someone has to pick you up, right?
Just lie and say someone came to get me.
Karen even suggested breaking the dance school's rules, which clearly required parents to pick up their elementary-aged kids. When we signed her up for the class, we agreed in writing that an adult would always pick her up while she was in elementary school. We couldn't just go and break the rules on a whim. Maybe Karen was starting to care more about how others saw her. After discussing it with Mom, we came up with a compromise. I'd pick Karen up, but then follow her home from a distance to give her a sense of independence. Karen reluctantly agreed but kept up her bossy attitude, telling me that I have to stay at least 10 feet away from her. Mom and I adored Karen too much to scold her for this attitude and ended up spoiling her instead. Even as a middle schooler, Karen continued to act cold toward me. But things started to change when she got to high school.
Hey, guess what, Anna? I got a boyfriend.
She came to me, unable to hide her excitement. Though Karen had always been passionate about dance, she lacked enthusiasm for anything else. Hearing that she liked someone and wanted to share it with me made me as happy as if it were my own experience. Congrats. What's he like?
He's super cool. Oh, but don't tell Mom or Dad, okay?
Of course. I'll keep it a secret. For the first time, we were having the kind of sisterly conversation I had always dreamed of. I was so overjoyed I nearly cried. From then on, Karen often shared things about her boyfriend with me. One night, she came to my room and said,
Hey, Anna, can I go see my boyfriend real quick?
It was already 9 p.m. No way could she go out at this hour. Still, I understood her desire to see him.
Please.
In the end, I gave in once again, but that only encouraged Karen's selfish behavior. Night after night, she started sneaking out to meet her boyfriend. It seemed she had also begun skipping her dance classes. When I noticed, I tried to confront her, but she didn't take it well. Eventually, Karen started sneaking out without telling me, making it even harder to keep her in check. One day, I received a phone call. It was from the police. I froze, fearing something had happened to Karen, but they simply asked me to come pick her up. Did something happen to my sister? I asked nervously, and the officer responded in a calm, professional tone. Apparently, they had noticed Karen multiple times in the past and warned her. Each time, Karen pretended that she was on the way home from tutoring or dance class and managed to avoid further trouble. But since they kept encountering her, this time they decided to take her into custody. Not wanting our father to find out, Karen had given the police my contact info, leading to this call. I rushed to the station. When I arrived, a stern-looking male officer glanced at me and asked to confirm my identity.
Are you the older sister?
Yes. I'm sorry my sister caused trouble.
If I may, where are your parents?
The officer seemed a little skeptical that I, someone just a few years into adulthood, had come to pick her up. Although having an adult family member pick her up was acceptable, the officer clearly wanted her parents to handle the situation.
That's why I told you, my dad's in the hospital, and my mom's staying with him full-time, so they can't come.
Karen lied to the officer. She only contacted me to avoid our parents finding out, but there she was spinning a story. Sighing, I opened my mouth to reprimand her.
She also came all the way here, even though she has work tomorrow. Let's just go home quickly.
Her words silenced me. She was right. I had work the next day. If I called out her lie now, they might insist on contacting our parents, and we'd be stuck here even longer. Besides, I felt partly responsible for not stopping her the first time she started sneaking out. Though I knew her lies were wrong, I neither denied nor confirmed them. The officer reluctantly let her go, telling me to ensure I talked to her about her behavior. I can't believe you got taken into police custody. This is too much. I scolded Karen on the way home. But my words didn't seem to faze her. She kept sneaking out, getting into trouble, and calling me to pick her up. By the 5th time I went to the police station, my patience had run out. Karen, you're still a high schooler. You need to live like one instead of trying to act beyond your years. This isn't normal, being called to the station over and over. You should break up with that boyfriend who keeps dragging you out late like this.
Why do you have to tell me how to live my life? What does acting like a high schooler even mean? I'm just living how I want to live.
I'm saying you need to live within your means. Staying out late isn't you, and I really don't think your boyfriend respects you if this keeps happening. Karen clicked her tongue in frustration, clearly annoyed by my lecture. Sitting in my car's passenger seat, she stared out the window with an exasperated look. This will be the last time I come pick you up without telling Mom and Dad.
What?
I can't keep covering for you forever. This situation isn't doing Karen any good. As expected, Karen complained, but I steeled myself and stayed firm. Everything I did was for her benefit. However, my intentions didn't seem to reach her. The proof came a few days later when Karen was once again taken into police custody, and I received another call.
Are you Karen's sister? I'm sorry to bother you, but could you please come to pick her up?
I'd become so familiar with the officer's voice that I could imagine his frustrated expression as soon as I heard it. But this time, I spoke clearly. I'm sorry, but I won't be coming to pick her up anymore.
What?
Please tell Karen to call our father herself. Thank you. The officer sounded flustered, but I ended the call after saying my piece. Karen must have heard about it from the police. Soon after, my phone was flooded with messages from her calling me stupid or useless, and accusing me of abandoning her. It would have been easy to help her, just like I always had. But I thought about what was best for Karen and quietly turned off my phone. That night was chaotic in our house. Our parents, called by the police, went to pick up Karen, only to lecture her in the living room until morning. Karen's defiant voice echoed through the house, keeping me from sleeping. But my parents' anger was justified. They thought Karen had been in her room, so they felt utterly betrayed. Knowing this, I couldn't deny my own responsibility for letting things slide until now. That night, I sat beside Karen as she was scolded and honestly told our parents everything. I should have talked to you both from the start. I'm sorry. Unsurprisingly, both Karen and I were thoroughly reprimanded by our parents. It was embarrassing to be scolded at this age, but I realized my mistakes, and I hoped Karen did too. Despite everything, my parents and I chose to trust her again. The following year, Karen entered her senior year of high school. Whether she broke up with her boyfriend or not, her nights of sneaking out and getting taken into police custody came to an end. She became dedicated to her dance classes again, and both my parents and I felt relieved. Around that time, I decided to start a new chapter in my life. I planned to change jobs and move out of our family home. It would be my first time living alone after always living with my family. Although I had my doubts about starting a new job and living independently, I made the decision after consulting with my parents. As my mom and I searched for an apartment and prepared for the move, Karen confronted me.
You're moving out? That's unbelievable. You don't care about me at all, do you?
Her words shocked me because I didn't see things that way at all. Of course that's not true.
But you wouldn't pick me up from the police anymore. You ratted me out to Mom and Dad. And now that I've started acting a little better, you're leaving?
You have your own life, Karen, and Anna has hers. This isn't something you get to interfere with.
My mom was stunned by Karen's words. But Karen continued to argue.
That's exactly what you're doing. You think I'm fine now, so you're dumping two old people on me. Let me just say, I'm not taking care of any old folks.
What are you even saying? I shouted at Karen. Sure, our parents weren't young anymore. But they weren't old enough to be called elderly, and I had no intention of dumping them on her. My mom, speechless and in shock, was at a loss for words. It must have hurt deeply. You're the one who's always causing trouble for Mom and Dad, Karen. Don't you dare get into any more trouble with the police after I move out.
I don't need to hear that from someone who's leaving.
From that day on, Karen stopped talking to me. No matter how many times I tried to speak to her, she ignored me. Though I worried about what would happen, moving day eventually came and I left home. Life after that wasn't easy. I struggled to adjust to living alone and to my new job, leaving me exhausted every day. With the distance to my parents' house requiring a flight, visiting wasn't an option. While I was busy with work, Karen enrolled in a dance academy and eventually turned 18. For her 18th birthday, I wanted to celebrate with the family, so I arranged time off work. To attend her big celebration, I even worked through the holidays and managed to get a week off, finally making my long-awaited trip back home. carrying gifts for the family in both hands. I boarded the plane and rushed home. I arrived at the house the night before Karen's big celebration. I had been looking forward to seeing her in her formal gown. But what awaited me at home were Karen's heartless words.
What are you doing here?
Karen asked coldly as soon as she saw me. Despite her frosty tone, I was happy to see her and replied cheerfully. Karen, you've grown so much. I came back to celebrate your big day. Tomorrow's the big event, right? Let's have a family celebration tonight. But Karen sneered at me.
Family? A woman who abandoned us isn't family. You're a stranger. Get lost.
What? I was left speechless. I never imagined she would lash out at me like this. And her behavior didn't stop there.
Oh, so you thought bringing this would make everything better?
She kicked the gifts I had brought. With a loud crash, the stack of gifts tumbled over. Karen showed no mercy, stomping on them with her feet.
What are you doing?
My mom, who had been preparing dinner in the kitchen, rushed into the living room and yelled at Karen. However, Karen arrogantly tilted her chin up and glared at me before stomping out of the room with heavy steps. I was still in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened, staring at the trampled gifts on the floor.
You went through all that trouble to buy these for us.
My mom's voice was filled with sadness as she picked up the crushed packages. The cookies Mom liked, the snacks I had brought for Dad, and even the chocolates for Karen were all smashed beyond recognition. How did she turn into someone who could act like this?
I'm sorry. The truth is, Karen's been in another rebellious phase for the past year. She even throws away the meals I make for her.
What? Why didn't you tell me sooner?
I didn't want to worry you.
As Mom said this, tears welled up in her eyes. I couldn't forgive Karen. That was the only feeling left in me. There was no time to wallow in sadness or shock. Now that Karen was supposed to be an adult, her selfishness needed to be dealt with, and I resolved to do something about it. That evening, only my mom, Dad, and I shared a meal together. Even though the snacks Karen had smashed were deformed beyond recognition, Dad smiled and told me that those were still tasty. His cheerful demeanor was a small comfort, but my anger toward Karen only grew. The next day was Karen's big day. Her 18th birthday celebration.
Mom, hurry up or I'll be late for my salon appointment.
Karen snapped at Mom early in the morning, clearly expecting her to be her chauffeur.
Is that the way you ask for a favor?
Dad scolded her, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Even if I had been there, it might not have made any difference. Still, I couldn't help but feel guilty that things had gotten this way after I moved out. In the end, Karen didn't send me a single picture of herself in her formal gown. She went to her celebration, avoiding me entirely that day. By the time she returned home, it was late at night. The next morning, we crossed paths briefly. But she left without saying a word. While I admired her dedication to her dance classes, she didn't seem to understand that it was thanks to the family's support that she could pursue them at all. Later that morning, after calculating the timing of her class schedule, I called her school. Hello, this is Karen Miller's sister. I'm calling about her tuition payments.
Yes, how can we assist you?
I'd like to stop the payments starting this month.
Are you looking to change the payment account?
And in response, I said firmly, no. I'm saying I won't be paying anymore. Please bill her directly from now on.
Understood. We'll stop the automatic withdrawals for now.
The administrator's hesitant response suggested. She didn't understand why I was doing this, but she didn't press further. I finalized the cancellation of the payments and allowed myself a slight smile. About an hour later, Karen called Mom. She must have heard about the tuition situation.
Mom? I was told I'd have to pay my own tuition now? What's going on?
Karen shouted furiously. It's not Mom.
Is that you, Anna?
Realizing it was me on the phone, Karen raised her voice even louder.
Stay out of this, Anna. I want to talk to Mom.
What are you misunderstanding? I'm the one who called the school to stop the tuition payments.
What authority do you have to do something like that?
I could practically see Karen's face turning red with anger. Well, I was the one paying for your tuition. That gives me the authority, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
It seemed Karen hadn't realized I'd been the one paying her tuition. The truth is, I switched jobs for Karen's sake. After breaking up with her high school boyfriend, Karen threw herself back into her passion for dance.
I want to go to a dance school after graduating high school. Then, I want to study abroad.
But there was one problem. The tuition for the dance school Karen wanted to attend was significantly higher than average. Still, the school was accessible despite the distance. Excellent facilities and opportunities for overseas study. Many of its alumni had become renowned dancers, making it the perfect environment for pursuing her dream. This school was Karen's chance to chase her aspirations. However, as much as I wanted her to attend, our family couldn't afford it.
Karen might need to look for a different school.
Yeah, even if we managed to cover the tuition, there's no way we could afford the study abroad expenses after that. It's better not to give her false hope.
Before switching jobs, my parents and I held a family meeting. My parents decided they would encourage Karen to give up on the idea, but I didn't want her to abandon her dream. But this is something Karen truly wants to do.
We understand that, but...
All right. I'll switch jobs. I'll pay for Karen's tuition. My parents were stunned by my suggestion.
Anna, you don't have to go that far. You have your own life to live.
Mom tried to dissuade me, but I was genuinely happy that Karen had found a dream, especially one connected to her lifelong passion for dance. I want Karen to grow into someone amazing. I truly believe she can achieve that through dance. This is as much for me as it is for her. That's how I ended up changing jobs. We decided as a family that my parents would save for her study abroad expenses while I covered her tuition. Together, we would support Karen's dream.
I can't believe this. You switched jobs. For me?
After hearing the full story, Karen murmured in disbelief. It was true. I had asked my parents to keep it a secret from Karen because I didn't want her to feel pressured by the fact that I was paying for her tuition. That said, even if I hadn't been paying Karen's tuition, our parents would have covered it, so I couldn't understand her attitude toward Mom. You might not believe it, but it's the truth. However, I've decided to stop supporting your dream.
What? Wait, you can't.
Someone like you, who disrespects your family, won't inspire anyone with your dancing anyway. Harsh words, maybe, but anything less wouldn't get through to Karen. On the other end of the line, Karen burst into tears. I could hear the sound of a chime over the phone. It must have been the start of her lesson, but Karen just continued sobbing. Well, I'm hanging up now, I said with a smirk and ended the call.
Do you think she'll be okay?
Even now, Mom was worried about Karen, but I told her. Coddling her won't help. This is something that will benefit her in the long run. Mom nodded, though I understood her concern. Since I'd abruptly hung up on Karen, I planned to talk to her again when she came home. About 30 minutes later, the front door opened.
I'm home.
You're back. What about school? Surprised, I ran to the door and called out to Karen. She stood there, her face contorted.
Anna, I'm sorry.
And then, right there in the entryway, she broke down crying loudly. Her face was pale, and she collapsed in tears. Judging by her state, she must have been so rattled by the news of the tuition cutoff that she left school early. It took something like this for her to realize her own foolishness. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just exasperated. What are you apologizing for? If it's about the tuition, I'm not changing my mind.
No. How am I supposed to live now?
It was as though she was appealing to my conscience, but I smirked in response. How? You've got a healthy body and that thick skin of yours. Get a job and figure it out.
You're horrible. You're not the Anna I used to know.
Karen's shock was written all over her face as she glared at me. She must have thought she could say or do anything to me and I'd forgive her. And, honestly, she wasn't wrong until now. I know it all too well myself. But that's part of what made Karen so selfish. But now, I had no intention of spoiling or forgiving her anymore. Horrible? Who's the horrible one here? You disrespected Mom and Dad, treated me like trash, and even called me a stranger. Now, suddenly, I'm your sister again? Don't make me laugh. Karen fell silent, her lips pressed tightly together. If you're really that passionate about dancing, you have options. Take a year off and save up for tuition, transfer to a different school, or even leave the country and start fresh abroad. There are plenty of ways.
But I have to graduate from that school first.
She started muttering complaints and excuses under her breath. As I sat in the living room and my mom quietly watched from the doorway, the more Karen spoke, the clearer her spoiled mindset became, leaving us both exasperated. When Karen finally ran out of excuses, I laughed. As long as you keep making excuses like that, you'll never accomplish anything. Karen must have realized I truly had no intention of helping her anymore. She looked up quickly and turned her pleading eyes toward Mom.
Mom, please say something to Anna.
It was as if she was trying to make me the villain and begging for support. Mom let out a heavy sigh at Karen's words.
Anna's right. We've been too lenient with you.
What?
Neither your dad nor I are going to help you anymore. You need to reflect on your behavior and figure things out for yourself.
Even Mom, usually so kind, seemed resolute in her decision to stop coddling Karen. Karen's face grew pale, and she collapsed to the floor in tears. It must have felt utterly hopeless, realizing there was no one left to come to her rescue no matter how much she cried. Karen had spent so long demanding from her family without ever considering how much support we'd given her to pursue her dream. Although I was the one who pulled back first, I believe this setback was something Karen needed to experience. In the end, Karen dropped out of school. Without tuition payments, there was no other option. It was a 3-year program. There was no way Karen or my parents could cover the remaining year and 3 months of tuition. But then, there was a glimmer of hope.
I've decided to try on my own. I'm going to study abroad to chase my dream.
Karen reached out to me with this declaration. Finally, she had resolved to work toward her dream on her own. If she was ready to put in the effort, I wanted to help her. With that in mind, I and my colleague, Kevin Cameron, began using our connections to research French dance schools, find affordable housing, and look for jobs that would allow Karen to balance work and dance. Incidentally, the company I had transferred to had branches in France, which had been a factor in my decision. The higher salary was appealing, but I also felt maintaining ties with France through work would allow me to support Karen if needed. Kevin, who had recently been transferred to France, even took the time to help Karen. I was deeply grateful. When I shared details about the dance schools and housing options, Karen was thrilled. It might be tough to balance work and dance studies, but do your best.
Thank you. I've realized how much I was relying on everyone before. But I'm going to achieve my dream, no matter what.
3 months later, after all the preparations were complete, Karen moved to France alone. We might not see each other often now, but I could only hope she would thrive there. Have you settled into your new place? How's work going? About a month after Karen's move, I reached out to her. Karen was working as a server at a cafe. The cafe was in a location with many American employees, including some from my own company, and they had been looking for someone who spoke English. This, too, was something Kevin had told me about, and I had introduced it to Karen. However, Karen's response to my question was hesitant.
Well, it just didn't feel like the right fit, so I quit.
What? You quit? What are you going to do now?
I'm looking for another job. Don't worry, I've got money.
Karen said this so casually. It was true that both my parents and I had given her a little extra money as a farewell gift, but it wasn't enough to sustain her for long. Ignoring my concern, Karen continued.
I didn't come here to work. I came here to dance. Dancing comes first.
Shouldn't working come first to support her dancing? The thought rose to my throat, but I swallowed it. Karen had decided to try on her own, and meddling too much wouldn't help. Accepting her reasoning, I ended the call. But later that night, I received an unexpected and shocking call.
Anna, the money's gone from our account.
It was Mom, her voice full of distress. What? What do you mean? Tell me everything.
The money your dad and I had saved for our retirement and for Karen's study abroad is gone. I went to the bank today to update the passbook, and it wasn't there.
Mom explained, crying as she spoke. Where's Dad? Is he with you?
Yes.
I asked her to let Dad take the phone. He would be calmer, and I needed to hear the details from him. When I asked Dad for an explanation, he responded in a steady voice.
Actually, it seems Karen was the one withdrawing the money.
What are you talking about?
I told the bank we didn't remember making any withdrawals. They investigated and found that over the past 3 months, after Karen dropped out of school, she'd been withdrawing small amounts over several days to avoid suspicion.
I was speechless. Dad confirmed with the bank that the withdrawal slips were in Karen's handwriting, leaving no doubt it was her doing. Recalling my recent conversation with Karen, I realized her claim about having enough money made sense now. So much for her trying on her own. After finishing the call with Dad, I immediately called Karen, driven by anger.
What is it this early in the morning?
Karen answered, her voice annoyed. It was night here, but clearly morning where Karen was. Not that it mattered. Did you steal Mom and Dad's money? I yelled at Karen, who sounded drowsy from sleep. Karen replied with an incredulous voice, but quickly seemed to grasp my accusation, and then she laughed.
Oh, so you finally figured it out.
What do you think you're doing?
Well, you made me quit school. So this is the least you could do for me, right? Besides, it's their fault for leaving the money around so carelessly. Anyway, I'm going back to bed now.
Karen had the audacity to brazenly justify her actions, spew insults, and then hang up the phone. At that point, I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. Determined to teach her a lesson, I made a call to someone. 3 days later, Karen called me in a panic.
Anna, that Kevin guy from your company took my money.
Her voice was frantic, a complete change from her usual arrogance. I smiled to myself, knowing my plan had worked. What? What do you mean?
I'm telling you. Kevin, the guy from your company who helped me with my apartment and was so nice to me. He came over yesterday, and I mentioned I kept my money at home. He said it wasn't safe for a single woman to have that much cash at home, so he offered to keep it safe for me. So I gave it to him, but when I asked for it back because I got worried, he said he wouldn't return it.
Karen rattled off her story in a single breath. Her carelessness had actually helped me. Oh, well, that's because I asked him to take it.
What? That's theft, Anna? Even if you asked him, it's still stealing. I'm going to report this to your company.
Karen was livid, yelling at me, but I couldn't help but laugh. Good luck with that. Even if you report it, you can't press charges against him.
That's ridiculous. He stole my money. I'm the victim here.
Well, Kevin happens to be your brother-in-law. Family theft isn't considered a crime. Karen fell silent at my words. She probably couldn't comprehend what I had just said. I figured it was best to let her stew in confusion, but I decided to explain anyway. Kevin Cameron is my husband. That makes him your brother-in-law.
What? You're married? Since when?
About a month ago. As I spoke, I rested a hand on my stomach. A few months ago, I had found out I was pregnant with Kevin's child. Kevin and I had been dating since I started my new job, and we had been together for 2 years. When I got pregnant, we decided to get married, but shortly after, Kevin was transferred to France for work. I couldn't leave my job immediately, and we hadn't had a wedding yet, but we filed our marriage paperwork for the sake of our child. Since Karen was just starting her new life, I hadn't thought it was necessary to tell her. Even so, Kevin had gone out of his way to look after Karen and support her as she adjusted to life in France. Karen must have assumed he was just a kind colleague of mine. Normally, anyone would have realized that no colleague would go to such lengths. But Karen, who took help for granted, clearly hadn't considered that possibility. So, I asked Kevin to get Mom and Dad's money back. And I've told him to stop helping you from now on. You'll have to figure things out on your own.
What? I don't even speak French. I quit my jobs, and now I don't have any money. What am I supposed to do?
Karen's desperate cries echoed through the phone, but I was done falling for her tricks. I would never trust her again. Figure it out yourself. With those final words, I hung up the phone. Karen, now alone in a foreign country. It was at the start of what would truly be her descent into hell. But the one who walked down that path was Karen herself. Until she realizes that it's no one's fault but her own, her life will remain stuck in that hell forever. According to Kevin, Karen has finally started looking for a new job. However, the cafe I had initially introduced to her has already hired another English-speaking staff member, leaving no position available for Karen. Without the time or money to attend her dance school, she seems to have quit altogether. What was the point of moving to France? I can't help but shake my head in disbelief. Currently, Karen works as a cleaning staff member, and Kevin has occasionally seen her at our company's branch office. Whenever Karen spots Kevin, she glares at him. Normally, guilt over her actions would make it impossible to even meet Kevin's eyes, but Karen clearly hasn't learned her lesson yet. With that kind of attitude, she's unlikely to escape her current life anytime soon. Meanwhile, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy in America and later joined Kevin in France.
If you see Karen, just ignore her.
Even my parents seem to have completely given up on Karen, as my mom said this with a laugh. Naturally, I have no intention of helping Karen anymore. I don't know what kind of life Karen will lead from now on, but as her sister, I believe I did everything I could to support her. That's why, from this point forward, I'll focus on myself and my family, without letting Karen's actions burden my mind. Looking forward to our life as a family of 3, I set off for a new chapter, determined to find happiness. My older sister, Samantha, who was supposed to have moved back in with our parents after her divorce, left her daughter with us and disappeared without a word. Yet suddenly, she called and said something absurd.
Do you know where I am right now? A hospital. At the maternity clinic.
I couldn't immediately grasp what Samantha was talking about. Maybe irritated by my lack of understanding, she added.
Guess what? I'm having a baby with Bob. And you never come back, okay?
That's what she said. So I replied. All right. You really have no idea, do you? I made sure to keep the words in my heart from slipping out. Then I turned to Haley, her abandoned daughter, and asked, Hey, Haley, do you want to meet your dad? Live with him? If you really feel that way, I can talk to him for you.
Yes.
Haley nodded enthusiastically. Now I could finally give those two a piece of my mind without holding back. My name is Emily Turner, and I'm a 32-year-old homemaker. I work from home as a sales and planning consultant for a renovation company. To put it simply, I specialize in home renovation proposals and sales. Currently, I live in a refurbished apartment in Chicago that I redesigned myself. However, I'm on a short break from work. I've been feeling emotionally drained lately, so I used up my paid holidays and returned to my parents' house. That's partly because there's been a bit of a rift between me and my husband, Bob. We got married when I was 30. Back then, I was so engrossed in work because I loved it too much. When I suddenly realized it, my 20s were nearly over. I panicked and thought, I need to hurry. Once I got married, I knew I wanted kids. There's a time limit on having children. If that's the case, I need to hurry. Once that thought crossed my mind, I went straight ahead. I frantically started dating, met Bob, who's 2 years older than me, and we happily got married when I turned 30. At that point, Bob shared the same desire to have kids as I did. So I figured I'd work until we had a child and then take a break, but nearly 2 years passed with no sign of anything happening. Maybe there's something wrong with my body. Thinking that, I went through countless thorough examinations on my own, but they all showed nothing abnormal. Finally, I decided to confide in Bob and persuaded him to get tested. I'd heard that most men resist such tests, and Bob was no exception.
A test? My body's been healthy all my life. Why would I need something like that?
This isn't about general health. It's a bit different.
Either way, I'm not doing it. Think about it. Having to go to the hospital for.
But if that's how you feel.
You're used to exams, aren't you? You spread your legs for them all the time.
Excuse me? What is this man talking about? For the first time, I started to feel distrust toward Bob. Does he even understand what it's like for a woman during a gynecological exam? Does he think I'm always okay with it? I had already gone through multiple tests, and there were no issues with me. The doctors told me I was perfectly healthy. That meant the problem had to lie with him. I decided to reason with Bob logically, not emotional. Because he often mocks me, saying, women act on emotions. Somehow, I managed to convince him, and he reluctantly agreed to get tested. The result? Bob was diagnosed with azoospermia.
What? That's impossible.
Bob was stunned as he heard the doctor's words. Well, I couldn't blame him. It must have felt like his self-confidence was shattered in an instant.
If you're determined to have a child together, there's a surgical option where we extract cells directly from the testicles. However, the success rate is only about 1 in 3.
Hearing that, Bob seemed deeply shocked. Ever since then, he started coming home very late from work. Is your job really that busy every single day?
Leave me alone. I just don't want to see your face right now.
Is it that upsetting, what the doctor said?
Of course. It's like being told I'm not a real man.
Well, I suppose that's understandable. But... So, you've always been telling me I'm incomplete too, haven't you?
What?
You blamed me, saying it was my fault, that there must be something wrong with my body. That's the same as calling me incomplete as a woman, isn't it?
What? What are you talking about? Men and women are different.
After having this conversation a few times, I became utterly exhausted. I was losing sleep, and it started affecting my work. So, I got a doctor's note and decided to take a leave of absence, returning to my parents' house to rest for a while. More than anything, I just didn't want to see Bob's face right now. Since my dad was often away on long business trips, my mom happily welcomed me back after hearing my situation. However, even my mom looked somewhat worn out during this time. I thought something might have happened, but I was too drained myself to ask her right away. Not long after I returned, my nemesis showed up. My older sister, Samantha, who's 3 years older than me. What's going on, Samantha? Samantha dropped her luggage heavily.
Seriously. All because of one or two little affairs, that man has the nerve to call me narrow-minded.
Affairs? That's right, my mom nodded wearily from the side. So, they got divorced. It was clear my mom had been deeply affected by the chaos surrounding that situation.
This is all I've got, so take care of this little one for me, would you?
Samantha had only brought a suitcase and a traveling bag. Then, leaving her little daughter Haley, a kindergartner, behind, she walked out the door. The child she abandoned was dressed strangely light for the middle of winter. Something about her appearance felt off. Then I realized. She wasn't wearing a scarf or gloves. Haley was only wearing an oversized coat and sat quietly in the corner of the room. "Aren't you cold?" When I asked, Haley shook her head. She must have been freezing. Yet she hesitated to join us on the heated carpet where we were sitting. I wondered what was wrong. When I stood up and encouraged her to sit with us, she flinched the moment I touched her. "Mom, about Haley." My mom, sensing the situation, took Haley over to her side instead of leaving her with me, her unfamiliar aunt. Her skin looked dry, and her hair was unkempt. "Haley, does your mom often leave you and go off somewhere?" Haley didn't respond, staying silent. "Do you feel lonely when your mom isn't around?" But when I asked that, she shook her head emphatically. After my mom encouraged Haley to get on the heated carpet and gave her a warm drink, she suddenly started crying.
I want to see my dad.
"Hey, Mom, what about Tony? How does he feel about Haley?"
Of course, he said he wanted to take her, but Samantha was adamant about raising her herself.
Even in this state?
Yes, even like this. Honestly, with the alimony we had to front, things are tight for us too. And Tony has a much more stable household. I think Haley would be much happier if she were raised there, especially because she's so precious.
Still, in situations like this, the mother can usually claim custody if she wants it. So, you decided to take her in?
No, right after the divorce, Samantha was supposed to move into an apartment.
He told us to leave.
Sitting awkwardly on my mom's lap, peeling a mandarin orange, Haley muttered softly. "What?"
My mom and the man were arguing, and he said that.
Mom and I exchanged glances. When Samantha came back, Mom confronted her. Samantha grumbled with a sulky expression.
That idiot went and brought up something so pointless.
What happened, exactly?
Nothing. I just didn't pay the rent for 3 months, that's all.
What? Sam, you're not working?
I am working, but obviously it's not enough.
Mom and I looked at each other again. We didn't know what kind of job Samantha had. But judging from her flashy appearance, it was clear she was taking good care of herself. Her bag looked expensive too. On the other hand, Haley's condition was. She's definitely spending the child support, isn't she?
I think so, but technically, it's for Haley, so I'm not sure what to do.
Mom sighed. Thinking about how Haley's skin had slowly improved since coming to stay with us, I wanted to do something for her. But there wasn't much I could do in my current situation, and it was frustrating. Then one day, Samantha suddenly said, "I'm heading out for a while," and disappeared.
Where could she have gone, leaving Haley behind?
She literally left the house and went off somewhere. Even though there were issues with Haley's kindergarten, Samantha abandoned everything and ran away. Maybe that's for the best. Keeping Haley away from her might be the right thing to do. Haley is adorable. As someone who wants kids, I can't understand why Samantha would neglect such a sweet child. And Haley eats her meals with such enjoyment, regardless of the portion size, that it's heartwarming.
It's been so long since I've had a warm meal.
Hearing that from Haley, both my mom and I couldn't help but feel tears welling up. And it wasn't just that. When I took a bath with her, I noticed bruises all over her body. Her dry skin only made the bruises stand out even more when I first saw them. Panicking, I asked my mom to bring me my phone and took photos of the bruises.
What are you planning to do with those?
I just thought we should document them, just in case. If anything happens, we can make sure Haley ends up in the right hands.
You're planning to confront Samantha about this.
Mom, you also need to get her to repay the alimony she owes.
Well, you're right, but still.
If I were Haley's mother, I would never let this happen to her. Hearing that, my mom, already aware of why I was on leave from work, nodded firmly.
You're right. Why is it that children never seem to end up with the people who truly want them?
One afternoon, while I was reading Haley a picture book, I got a call. It was from Samantha. Hello?
Oh, Emily? Do you know where I am right now?
How would I know where you are, Samantha?
You're always like that. So unlovable.
I don't remember you ever treating me with love either.
That big mouth of yours won't last forever.
What are you trying to say?
I'm asking if you know where I am right now.
Where are you? There was a lot of noise in the background. But it wasn't enough to figure out her location. Somewhere downtown?
Close, but not quite. I'm at a hospital, a maternity clinic.
Okay.
There's that tone again. Can't you be a little more surprised or something?
Well, it's hard to be shocked on command. Before I could finish my sentence, Samantha interrupted.
I'm having a baby with Bob. Don't ever come back.
For a moment, I didn't fully understand what she was saying. A baby? With my husband? That couldn't be true. Then I remembered the real reason I was staying here. Come to think of it, I hadn't told Samantha anything about it. Without saying a word to anyone, Samantha would often wander out of the house and disappear somewhere.
Are you listening? I'll say it again. Listen carefully. You're not welcome back anywhere. I'll be living in that house.
That house?
The apartment you were living in. It might look old, but the interior is beautiful. It's wasted on you. A place like that suits me much better. So you can just stay over there forever.
What about Haley? Startled to hear her name, Haley flinched slightly.
Do whatever you want. You don't have kids. So why don't you raise her?
Are you sure about that?
That child is nothing but a burden now. I only took her in to get child support. But things have changed. So do whatever you want.
All right. You really don't know anything, do you? With those words, Samantha hung up the phone. I set my phone down and hugged Haley tightly.
What's wrong, Auntie?
Looking directly into Haley's eyes, I asked her, Haley, do you want to see your dad? Do you want to live with him? If that's really how you feel, I can talk to him for you.
Yes.
Haley nodded enthusiastically. That settled it for me. 2 weeks later, in the evening, my mom and I were preparing tea for an unusually large number of visitors when the phone started ringing repeatedly. Mom and I exchanged glances and silently agreed to ignore it. As night fell, we heard the intercom buzzing repeatedly and loud banging on the door. Mom.
I know.
Mom swiftly left the kitchen and went to the intercom asking,
Who's there?
It's me. It's me.
I don't know who me is. State your name clearly.
Mom, stop messing around.
I know Emily's there. Let me see her.
Samantha and Bob's voices. I couldn't believe they'd come together. Caught you, I thought with a sly grin at the sound of their voices. As I served tea to the guests gathered around the large rectangular table, I said, It looks like they're here. The people seated at the table nodded deeply, as if to say, We understand. Soon, the front door opened with a loud bang. At the same time, a shrill voice echoed through the entryway.
What is with all these bags?
In the familiar hallway, men's leather bags. No, even a couple of women's bags were lined up neatly.
Everyone's been waiting for you two to show up.
What?
With an unusually cheerful demeanor, my mom greeted Samantha and Bob and led them into the living room where we were. The moment she opened the door to the room, Samantha let out a shrill,
What? Why are you all here?
The guests were crowded around a large rectangular table, sipping tea. Along the left side of the table sat Tony, Samantha's ex-husband, and his mother.
Why? Isn't it obvious, Samantha? We have something to discuss.
What's so strange about us wanting to visit and see our granddaughter after so long, Samantha?
And Samantha, when I contacted your old apartment, they said you were evicted for unpaid rent. I've been paying a decent amount in child support to ensure Haley could live properly, haven't I?
Tony and his mother were sipping tea with calm precision as Tony spoke matter-of-factly.
That kind of money doesn't even cover anything.
Samantha snapped, trying to approach the table. But my mom stopped her.
Samantha, you sit here.
She pointed to the carpet in front of the table, where there was no cushion or anything to sit on.
Why? That spot over there is free, isn't it? And who are these people?
She wasn't wrong. 3 of the 4 sides of the table were occupied. One side was taken by Tony and his mother. The short side had a man in glasses wearing a suit, quietly sipping tea. And another side was occupied by a couple.
Nice to meet you, Samantha Anderson. I'm Ashley Turner, this man's wife.
With that, Ashley tugged her husband into the light, revealing his face to Samantha.
Do you remember him? Or should I have him explain it to you? Right, dear?
Ashley smiled at Samantha with a radiant grin. The perfect contrast to her trembling husband. Samantha stood frozen, visibly shaking. Then, from behind her, someone firmly pressed down on her shoulders. Just sit down, Samantha.
Dad, why are you here?
Why wouldn't I be? This is my house, after all. Oh, you too, Bob. Sit down already.
Yes.
Bob was always intimidated by my father. My dad goes on long business trips because he works as a site supervisor for bridge construction projects in rural areas. For years, he's been leading outdoor crews, no matter how cold or dangerous the conditions. This made him the kind of person Bob, who relies on smooth talk to navigate office environments in the city, finds difficult to deal with. The two of them were made to sit formally on the carpet.
Well then, now that everyone's here, shall we begin?
The guests stopped drinking tea, and the lawyer sitting at the short side of the table pulled out some documents from his briefcase.
Begin what?
Bob turned to the lawyer sitting across from him and asked.
So first, we're here because your wife, Emily, wants a divorce.
What? Hey, Emily, you leave for your parents' house out of the blue, and now this? Wait, I have something I want to say to you first.
All right, what is it? I looked at Bob and asked.
What's the deal with selling the apartment?
It's exactly as it sounds. What's the issue?
Oh, there's an issue. Someone barged into my house out of nowhere.
What's going on, Emily? And why were those people there for the viewing?
Samantha interrupted Bob, joining in. I was putting the apartment up for sale and had potential buyers come to view it. That apartment has only been renovated for about 3 years since I worked on it. I needed them to check if it would suit them as it is.
Why are you doing something like that?
Because it's my apartment. Didn't Bob tell you? Samantha's face twisted in disbelief. When I decided on the divorce, I wasted no time taking action. I asked my company if they knew of any good real estate firms since I wanted to sell my apartment. Given the close ties between my company and real estate agencies, they quickly referred me to always use the same process to buy a new place in the future. Letting go of this one wasn't a big deal. By the way, Bob, didn't you tell Samantha that the apartment was bought and renovated by me?
No, I don't have to tell her.
I bought that place with my savings before we got married and personally arranged for the renovations. You've just been living there without contributing anything, so you have no claim to it.
What?
Samantha's eyes darted between Bob and me.
Wait, that wasn't Bob's house?
I never said it was.
Normally, the woman moves into the man's house.
And I cut her off. Why are you butting into my property, Samantha?
Because I was planning to take Bob and the apartment away from you.
You idiot.
Our dad smacked Samantha on the head.
Ouch. That hurts. Dad, you're so mean.
Mean? Are you admitting you've been having an affair with Bob?
An affair? No, I plan to marry him. After all, I'm pregnant with Bob's child.
With that, Samantha pulled a maternity record out of her bag and held it up. Bob's eyes widened as he stared at it. Then, in a flash, he slapped Samantha across the face.
My child. There's no way.
What do you mean?
I have a zoospermia.
It was a painful declaration. Bob probably didn't want to admit it, even now. But he had no choice. If he didn't speak up, he'd be forced to raise another man's child. It seemed he made the decision quickly.
You sisters are both just out to ruin me, aren't you?
Bob turned and glared at me with hatred. I let out a deep sigh. Listen, Bob. You're always whining about how hurt you are, but do you know how many times I had to go through tests? All you had to do was provide a sample. Meanwhile, my tests involved invasive procedures, blood draws, and even injecting contrast into my fallopian tubes. That's painful. It's practically surgery. Bob's face twisted in discomfort. And you couldn't even bring yourself to try the surgery the doctor suggested.
Well, Bob, did you ever consider that surgery?
My dad placed a firm hand on Bob's shoulder. Bob trembled, unable to answer. No, because instead, you got involved with Samantha, thinking there'd be no consequences since she wouldn't get pregnant, right?
What?
Samantha whipped around to face Bob.
So, Bob, from the start, you only saw me as.
Of course, it was just fun. You came onto me, and since I can't have kids, I figured why not? But come on, why would I ever take a single mom who throws herself at me seriously?
This time, Samantha slapped Bob across the face, the sound echoing around the room.
You're the worst.
And who's the worst here? Whose child is it? It's definitely not mine.
That would be his.
Ashley, who had been quiet until now, spoke up calmly.
It's my husband's, isn't it, Samantha?
What? I don't even know his name.
Of course not. He was using a fake name on the dating app.
Dating app.
You're unbelievable.
While I had explained some of the situation to my parents, even I hadn't known the full details of how they met.
I only met him a few times.
Yet you got pregnant, didn't you? And Samantha, I'll be suing you for damages from your affair. And no, I'm not divorcing him. Clinging to him won't work. He'll be spending the rest of his life making it up to me and our child.
With that, I'll leave the proceedings to you, Ashley said, flashing another brilliant smile at the lawyer.
Compensation?
Yes, and I have my own demands as well. I directed my words at Bob and Samantha.
Please, stop. I was just tempted into it.
But you're the one who gave in, weren't you? Samantha gleefully told me about her plans to take you and my home.
Well, even so.
It wasn't just the affair. I realized long before that I couldn't continue with you. Do you know how many times you blamed me for not being able to have kids before even agreeing to get tested? Oh, and your mother called me repeatedly to say the same thing.
My mom? You told my mom?
I sent her your test results. I knew she wouldn't believe me otherwise. Not that your parents are bad people, they're actually quite nice, but it's unfortunate I'll have to cut ties with them over this. Bob bit his lip in frustration.
What about the property division? You can't just sell the apartment like that.
Unfortunately, the apartment was entirely Emily's personal asset. Additionally, it seems you both kept separate savings accounts. This divorce will proceed smoothly, with compensation owed solely by you, Bob. And one more thing.
What else?
Bob and Samantha finally seemed to realize that their lack of even a cushion to sit on signified bad news for them.
Samantha, we will also be transferring custody of Haley to her father.
What?
Samantha wasn't even listening to the details anymore. She was too consumed with anger at being blamed for everything.
You're taking everything from me and now Haley too?
But you said it yourself on the phone, didn't you? I played the recording of that call for everyone to hear.
Do whatever you want. You don't have kids, so why don't you raise her? That child is nothing but a burden now. I only took her in for the child support, but things are different now. Do as you like.
I had deliberately recorded that conversation to ensure Haley's custody could be transferred to Tony. Samantha is reckless. I figured she would slip up over something trivial. That's why I deliberately asked her about Haley as well.
And then there's this.
The lawyer presented photos of Haley's bruises and malnourished state to Tony and his mother.
This is horrible. How could you do this?
By the way, the winter coat Haley was wearing when she arrived at our house apparently came from a neighbor. A family with a boy gave her the coat because they saw her shivering outside. I interjected.
What?
When I visited the apartment complex to apologize on Samantha's behalf, the neighbors mentioned it. They saw Haley in the cold and handed down an old coat. That's all she had. Nothing more. That's why Haley was malnourished, had dry skin, and frostbite on her fingers from not even having gloves or a scarf. The lawyer then produced a medical report. Samantha, if you object, will proceed to family court.
What? Why are you going this far? Oh, I get it. You must be in love with Tony. You're just trying to replace me by framing Bob and me.
Your delusional pink brain hasn't changed one bit.
Tony said, exasperated.
I only got back in touch with Emily after years because of this situation. I had no idea Haley was going through something like this. I'm truly grateful she told me.
What? What? Are you saying it's all my fault?
How could you possibly think it's not your fault?
The lawyer responded calmly.
First, you had an affair with Ashley's husband from the dating app. Then you tried to get close to Emily's husband, Bob, after getting pregnant, aiming to pass the child off as his. And on top of that, there's the child neglect and abuse. The fact that you think you've done nothing wrong is astonishing.
Samantha groaned, stood up abruptly, and tried to bolt from the room.
What's wrong, Auntie?
Startled by the noise, Haley opened the door to the room just as Samantha was rushing out, accidentally bumping into her. Samantha lost her balance and fell hard onto the floor.
Oh?
Haley!
Daddy!
Haley immediately forgot about her mother, who had fallen nearby, and ran joyfully toward her father. Meanwhile, something seemed off about Samantha as she lay collapsed on the floor. She was groaning in pain, clearly struggling. Oh. I noticed a dark, red stain spreading from under Samantha's skirt. Mom. Call an ambulance. What followed was utter chaos. Samantha ended up having a miscarriage. It seemed she truly was in the early stages of pregnancy, and the mental shock of being confronted, standing up suddenly after sitting for so long, and the final blow of colliding with the door all contributed to the outcome. A dark stain slowly spread across the carpet where Samantha was sitting. I immediately asked my parents to call for an ambulance. Haley was sent with Tony and his mother to stay at their hotel for the night. She was overjoyed to finally see her father and seemed entirely unaware of her mother's suffering. Tony quietly took Haley and left. When the ambulance arrived, my mom and I rode with Samantha to the hospital. My dad stayed behind to ensure Bob didn't try to escape. Thanks to that, we managed to get Bob's signature on the divorce papers and his agreement to the compensation terms. Ashley and her husband left that day, saying they would follow up later. Since they live nearby, there's no need to rush. Samantha and Ashley's husband just met through a dating app after she moved into my parents' house. She experienced heavy bleeding and was even in danger of losing her life at one point. However, her resilient mind and body seemed to pull her through. And she was discharged after only a few days. When she returned to the family home, Haley was already gone. The next chapter involved Ashley continuing her demands. If it had been just my mom, Samantha might have tried to escape, but with my dad watching her closely, she had no choice but to comply. Currently, under my father's supervision, Samantha has been taken to a remote construction site where she spends her days doing chores from morning till night. It's probably the worst possible work environment for someone like Samantha, who would otherwise run away again if left unchecked. As for Bob, he was immediately kicked out of the apartment after that. The potential buyers who came for the viewing expressed interest in moving in immediately, though they mentioned the place needed cleaning. As a result, Bob had to hastily move out of the apartment. Since the furniture was all mine, he was left with nothing. While the alimony he owed wasn't as devastating as it was for Samantha, moving from scratch was bound to be an expensive ordeal. His new place wasn't anywhere close to the previous one. He ended up relocating to a distant town where one of his company's subsidiaries was located. Thanks to the certified letter I sent to his company, Bob's position there plummeted, and he was pathetic.
Auntie.
Haley. Oh, look at that adorable outfit.
Grandma bought it for me.
It had been 2 months since everything happened. Haley, now bright and healthy, a far cry from when Samantha brought her here, occasionally visits our home with Tony.
Well, isn't that just wonderful? You know, Emily, we should go shopping together sometime.
Oh, Mom, you're too much. Since then, I had been transferred to a sales office within driving distance of my parents' home. I had considered resigning after taking such an extended leave. But my company, having learned about my situation, offered me a position closer to home instead. Now, I primarily live with my mom at the family home. As for my dad, he made it clear that Samantha wouldn't be allowed to step foot in the house again unless she truly reformed.
Actually, today, I wanted to ask if you could handle a renovation for our home, Emily.
Oh, thank you. Of course. Could you tell me more about your needs?
Yes, we'd like to convert one of the rooms into a bedroom for Haley.
Haley had grown close to her dad and grandparents, and she seemed to enjoy her days at her new preschool after transferring.
After everything with my first marriage, I've decided to live solely for Haley for the time being.
That's a wise choice. Choosing a life partner is truly challenging. I'll keep that in mind for myself. It's true. Rushing into marriage just because I was nearing 30 had been a mistake. I ended up wasting years because of it. I don't know if there will be another chance for me, but if there is, I'll take my time and choose more carefully next time.
After receiving shocking news from my mom, my sister, who had eloped and gone missing years ago, had returned, I headed back home with my son. Sure enough, there were women's shoes at the house. Moreover, my sister Mary came out in her underwear. She laughed and said triumphantly to me, "Aha!
I scored a luxury high-rise and a wealthy husband. You poor folks can keep working your part-time jobs forever."
But then, a voice from behind her.
Too bad for you. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore.
My husband, Mike, said this nonchalantly as he appeared.
Wait, are you trying to? She's trying to create a fait accompli with me.
He burst into laughter.
And what would that accomplish? The house is all in Sarah's name.
Yes, the high-rise we're living in belongs to me. I got it from an inheritance from my ex-husband. My name is Sarah Smith. I'm a 34-year-old working for an organization dedicated to preserving American classical culture. My husband, Mike, a former colleague, is also studying American classics in graduate school, 3 years my junior. He's currently continuing his research while working towards his PhD. His situation allows him the flexibility to do school and activity runs for our son, Joshua, in my place. But that's not all. Honestly, Mike is far better at household chores than I am. His cooking may not be elaborate, but it's efficient. Aside from his study space, he keeps the rest of the house clean with minimal effort. And he handles laundry and related tasks more delicately and meticulously than I do. I'll take care of your life. Can I ask you to handle the household chores? Those were roughly the words with which I proposed to him. Frankly, I fell for him precisely for these qualities. I'm just too busy to handle everything myself. As long as you don't suffer, continue your research, I said. Even his parents were surprised. They even asked if I intended to treat their son as a gigolo, a memory that now brings a smile to my face. But after discussing our feelings, living arrangements, and our child, we got married, and he became a stay-at-home husband. It was an unusual arrangement, but we were happy and got along well. Then, something unexpected happened. It was Tuesday afternoon. As I was about to leave work for the rare occasion of picking up Joshua in place of Mike, who was preoccupied with his dissertation, I suddenly received a phone call. "Hello, Mom, what's up?" It was from my mom. Our family home is far from the urban center where we currently live, a 5 to 6 hour drive away. Since getting married, we've been visiting them for only the summer or Christmas holidays. So, we usually kept in touch through messaging on cell phones. But direct phone calls were rare. Both my parents schedule the time for me because I'm busy at work.
It's serious, Sarah.
What's the matter all of a sudden?
Mary's come back.
Mary? Mary, that's my sister, 2 years younger than me. However, we haven't seen each other for over 10 years. She ran away from home when she was 18.
Apparently, her husband's company went bankrupt.
Bankrupt?
Yes, she was banging on the intercom, saying her husband had run away in the night after racking up a huge amount of debt. And to avoid debt collectors coming after her, she used his signature without permission, got someone to sign a name, and filed for divorce.
An involuntary wow escaped my lips. So now,
I told her she couldn't stay with us, but she had the nerve to show up, and she left her daughter with us.
What? She left her behind?
Yes, she's so young. I asked her age, and I was truly shocked.
What shocked you so much?
When she arrived, I thought she was still in preschool, but she's just a year younger than Joshua.
What? A year younger than 9-year-old Joshua. Then she should be in the 2nd grade. And to think she looked like a preschooler. Mom, is she that small?
She's tiny and skinny, her skin is dry, and she's got chapped skin. For now, I've given her some snacks and let her take a shower, but she seems so uncomfortable.
My mom's voice sounded like she was holding back tears, as if she might break off her words at any moment. But I had to ask this. Mom, you're not going to kick her out, are you?
What are you saying? Of course not. No matter how good for nothing Mary might be, this child is our granddaughter. Her clothes are all tattered too.
That's good. So, Mom, where did Mary go after leaving the child? Yes, I had to ask that.
To your place, Sarah.
Why to my place?
It seems before coming to our place, she went to see some old friends, and somehow she was told you married rich.
I instinctively placed a hand on my forehead. Whoever it was, telling half the story just causes trouble. Did they give her my address?
No, but it seems she got your work-related cell phone information.
My work-related cell phone. Well, that can't be helped. In my line of work, I sometimes have to use my work phone to some extent.
That's why Dad is hurrying over to your house now.
Dad is.
So please, hold the fort until then.
Wait, Mom, when did Mary leave there? Before I could get an answer, the call with my mom ended. It's just past 3 p.m. Picking up Joshua from school, then taking him to his lessons, waiting for him to finish, going shopping. Mike has been so absorbed in his work since yesterday that he won't be able to cook for tonight and all of tomorrow for sure. So shopping is absolutely necessary. And even if he finishes writing, he's likely to fall asleep without eating. Usually, after staying up for about 3 days, he sleeps for a day and a half. But if I have to buy a lot of ready-to-make food, it looks like it will be past 6 p.m. before I know it. I'm worried about what will happen.
Wait, Mom has a sister?
Yeah, I have one.
I see.
In the car, after finishing the shopping, I decided to briefly explain the situation to Joshua. Surprised.
Not really. I mean, with our family, I figured there's always something.
Joshua, at 9 years old and in the 3rd grade, is quite bright and a bit mature for his age. Our slightly unconventional family dynamics meant he understood the situation quickly once explained. I guess he takes after his dad in that regard. As a child, I remember just squabbling simply with my sister. Compared to that, Joshua is calm and thoughtful. I'm a little worried. Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot.
Like what?
Where do I start? There are parts of the story that are okay to share with a child and parts that aren't. Remember the house where Mom and Joshua used to live?
Yeah, it's close to Grandma and Grandpa's place, right?
Mom's sister, well, she didn't like living in that town, and over a decade ago, she ran away with someone she loved.
Wow, that's kind of amazing.
Hey, Joshua. Yes, Mary ran away at 18 with the president of a startup who was nearly 40 at the time. It wasn't out of love, though. Mary was involved in compensated dating. Since she was in high school, neither I nor Mary should have had any difficulty with money. My parents also saved enough money to send us to our preferred schools. I got enough money to buy what I wanted. But it seems that wasn't enough for Mary. She went off to a prestigious university downtown, but by the end of her first year, we got a call from the school administration. Guess what? Mary was pregnant at the time. When Dad, furious, demanded to know who the dad was, Mary confessed without hesitation. That man was the one she had just divorced without permission. Angered by both the compensated dating and her partner, our parents told Mary to leave. She left without a fuss and lost contact. If it had been just leaving, we might have tracked her through her health insurance. But she married the guy. When she became a man's dependent, we couldn't keep her feet at all. Once the initial anger subsided, worry set in. No news at all felt like a breach of duty, and my parents had many reasons to be angry. They became the subject of rumors at work and in the neighborhood, feeling shunned for raising such a daughter. How could you have raised a daughter who could do such a thing? My dad was supposed to be promoted to director, but that's off the table now. And other such grievances I heard were unpleasant to recall. However, something my mom said earlier caught my attention. The child Mary left is 8 years old. That means she's not the child Mary was pregnant with all those years ago. What happened to that child? I can't help but wonder.
Mom, you're making a scary face.
Responding to Joshua's comment, I said, sorry.
Is something bothering you?
Yeah, it's about your cousin. Eventually, we arrived back at the apartment, lugging the heavy shopping bags between us. But they were too heavy. So we decided to borrow a cart from the concierge at the entrance.
Miss Smith, your sister, Miss Jones, was here earlier.
The concierge informed us. Did you let her in?
We checked and copied her ID, just to be safe.
Oh no, I covered my eyes with my palm again. I'm sorry, it's my fault for not making the rules about who can come and go clearer.
So, we shouldn't have let her in.
Well, yes, but it's okay. This time it's on me, and has my dad arrived yet?
Your dad.
Please hold on, the concierge said before going to check.
He hasn't arrived yet.
I see. Well, when my dad does arrive, please let him in right away.
Understood.
I showed a photo of my dad to the concierge, saying, make sure this person is let in no matter what. Then, we loaded our bags onto the cart and took the elevator to the top floor. We're home. And sure enough, there were women's shoes at the door.
You're back early, aren't you?
My sister, more flamboyant and aged than I remembered. But that wasn't the issue. What's with that outfit? Mary appeared in nothing but her underwear. Joshua, who had been pushing the cart alongside me, was speechless, eyes wide.
What do you mean?
She laughed and said triumphantly to me, aha.
Scored a luxury high-rise and a rich husband. Let the poor keep working their part-time jobs forever.
Joshua and I were stunned. But then from behind her came another voice.
Too bad for you. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore.
Mike appeared behind Mary, wearing nothing but a shirt over his bare skin. Mike's appearance while scratching his shaggy head and Mary's underwear on top of each other can make it look like after an affair. But I had no such parts. I was confident that wasn't the case. I had that confidence.
Using that stuff made me lose my focus. Geez.
Wait, what? You realized it was a sleeping pill, and it didn't work.
I figured I was drugged because of the strange drowsiness, but that doesn't mean I could sleep.
That's not right.
I said, ignoring Mary's comments. Mike turned to Joshua.
Joshua, thanks for helping with the shopping.
Yay, Dad, help me put stuff away.
Pushing the cart inside, Joshua moved toward the kitchen. Okay, Mike said, following him with the cart. And he murmured in a deliberately annoyed and exaggerated tone.
I had heard from Sari about her sister, so I figured there might be something up. But I never expected to be drugged right off the bat. You know, my sleep schedule is all over the place anyway. And with all the stuff I'm thinking about lately, I don't sleep unless I really try to. So yeah, I can tell the difference between natural sleepiness and the drug-induced kind.
Mary's expression grew even more severe.
Well, I figured you were up to something, so I just played along and pretended to sleep. What's with this person?
Mike laid out his words in a calm, matter-of-fact manner. Facing his composed demeanor, Mary, who had seemed so confident at first, was left utterly dumbfounded.
What is with this guy?
There was no better way to say it. She had picked a wrong opponent. What's with you, walking around in that outfit? Were you trying to create some kind of fait accompli by stripping him and pushing him into bed? I let out a deep sigh. Well, why has she always been so foolish? But given the situation, I could guess what had happened. Mary must have learned I was living in a luxury high-rise in the metropolitan area and came here. Then, gathering information around the neighborhood as my sister living in the top-floor penthouse, she found out Mike was a stay-at-home husband doing research related to my current job. Assuming Mike would be home alone, she targeted the time I was out. From Mike's perspective, after repeatedly ignoring the doorbell, he finally answered to find a woman claiming to be my sister. With his mind still half on his dissertation, Mary probably thought, seeing a disheveled, almost pajama-clad man. So she thought like this. Wow, he's young. Did my sister score a younger, intellectual, luxury high-rise owner? That's unfair. I'll steal him. And then, probably carrying sleeping pills for some reason, she tried to drug Mike, strip him, push him into bed, and confront me with the scene. But Mary didn't know Mike. He can become so absorbed in his research and writing that he forgets both time and meals. Attempting such a thing on him was bound to fail, something I knew all too well.
Wait, she was trying to create a fait accompli with me.
Mike's voice grew louder before he erupted into laughter.
What would be the point? The house is all Sarah's, after all.
Yay, what's this aunt even talking about?
Hey, watch it, kid.
Well, technically, he can call you aunt without any issues. He's my son after all.
What, your son? But he's so big, and he's still in his 20s, right?
Well, my sins from my previous marriage.
You remarried. So the rich husband you married.
Something you wouldn't know since you've been running away all this time. As I spoke, I was finally able to go to my room. After hanging up my coat and setting down my bag, Mike served me some tea. Glancing around, I noticed a haphazardly placed bag on the living room table. The bag makes my room feel strangely messy. I felt disgusted. I wanted to get rid of it quickly.
So, you're not going to serve me even a single cup of tea?
Mary watched me drink my tea with a resentful look. I don't really feel like serving someone who drugs their tea. And how long do you plan on staying in that outfit? I don't want a flasher roaming around my house.
First, explain yourself. How come you're the owner of this penthouse?
Oh, why can't conversations with this sister ever go smoothly? Well, I guess I have to explain for her to understand. You see, when my ex-husband passed away, he left us a lot of assets. That's how I bought this place. Paid in full, not a mortgage.
What? Paid in full by you? But this place must be worth millions.
Because that's still just 1/100th of the real estate I currently own. Mary was speechless. Yes, the top floor of this high-rise is completely mine. But that's not all. I now own numerous properties with a total asset value of $200 million. Not only can I live a comfortable life with the income from these properties, but I'm also an advisor to an organization involved in the preservation of American classical culture. Half of it is for tax strategies, and the other half is for Mike's sake. Essentially, my busy daily work involves being a director for this organization. And sometimes I get reports on land matters. Explaining this left Mary astonished.
To you, Sarah.
Yes, to me, because, Mary, you didn't know that I got married right after graduating from college, or even why.
What are you talking about?
Because of the mess you did, Dad's company's credibility plummeted, and we had a tough time.
HMMM. What does it matter what a grown daughter does?
You weren't of legal age at the time. Having a daughter involved in compensated dating from high school made it look like we couldn't even educate our child properly. Mom felt humiliated for a while. Then, I received a marriage proposal from the Brown,
So-called burden of the Brown family.
Yes, it was him. Indeed, my ex-husband was referred to that way. He has been sickly since birth, has hardly been to school, and has always had a doctor. That's why they said he was the burden of the prestigious family. Indeed, the family's burden from an outsider's perspective. But that was never how his family saw him. They all loved him dearly, without any desires. He happened to fall for me during one of my visits home, seen in a hospital. The Brown lords even came to our house. My son, who had never wanted anything before, wanted only one thing, so family members came to ask me, who was more than 10 years younger than him. I married at 22, partly to widen my parents' shoulders. My husband passed away while Joshua was still in my womb. My pregnancy was through IVF, since he didn't have the strength for a natural conception, fulfilling his parents' wish and mine, and I myself agreed for the sake of my sweet ex-husband. He passed away, leaving only his name for our child, unable to see his face. Left a young widow, his parents thanked me, leaving his inheritance as per his will. However, relatives eyeing the inheritance like vultures made me move to a secure high-rise downtown when Joshua started kindergarten. How can you expect me to believe such a windfall story? Mary shook her head in disbelief. She yelled at me with a look of utter disgust on her face. Even if you say that.
So what about him now? After inheriting so much, you were allowed to remarry.
I was. Though I didn't need permission, I consulted them out of respect for my wonderful in-laws, who apologized for having me spend my best years caring for a sick man and undergoing IVF.
As if the inheritance wasn't enough.
They said life and time can't be bought with money. My kind in-laws, who had lost their beloved son to illness, understood the value of time and life well. They must have been touched by their wealth. After moving to the city center, I found myself exhausted from solo parenting, a stark contrast to the life surrounded by my in-laws. That's when I reconnected with Mike, a junior from college who had admired me. He became a great help to me, overwhelmed as I was. As he came and went, gradually Joshua grew fond of him. And I found myself wishing he would stay with us permanently, so I proposed. My in-laws described Mike as apparently harmless to anything but academics. Their support, rather than opposition, was probably also to deter relatives who were pushing their candidates for remarriage.
So, you're the only one getting a good deal.
Mary started to say when my phone's ringtone interrupted her. A call at this time meant, I switched the phone to speaker mode after answering.
Hello, Sarah. I was worried because you hadn't replied to my messages. Are you okay?
Mary groaned on the spot. Mom, I'm fine.
Good. I thought I heard a noise like stepping on a frog. Is Mary there by any chance?
Yes, she is. I looked at Mary with a full smile.
Mom, why do you know this place?
You always forget what you've said after 3 steps. Didn't you say you were going to your sister's place?
Terrible. Why do you treat my sister differently even though we're both your daughters?
Mary yelled at the phone, genuinely angry.
What? As if you have the right to say that. After you left, Sarah marrying into the Brown family ended the terrible rumors surrounding our family. It wasn't quite being outcasts, but Dad's prominent position in the company only made the rumors worse. That situation lasted only 2 years thanks to Sarah. The Brown family helped a lot, saving our neighbors, relatives, and Dad's company factions. You were about to ruin all Dad's hard work and progress in the city's most important company.
That's your problem. I never asked him to succeed.
Yet, we could attend a private college in the city because of that.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you get to hold it over me.
Well, maybe you're right about that, Mary, but what about the child you had in your belly back then?
Mom's voice turned cold as she asked Mary.
What?
You ran off with your partner because you were pregnant. What happened to that child?
He took the child with him.
I managed to contact him.
No, groaned Mary.
I got his number when I looked for your whereabouts through the Brown family connection.
My mom told me so.
He apologized for running away and thanked me for the divorce. He may not have been great at making money, but he was a better person than you. He's working somewhere far away to pay off his debts alone.
Alone? I asked Mom.
Yes, alone. You can guess what that means, Sarah.
Mom had mentioned that the child Mary brought was in a terrible state. I quickly turned to Mary. You, the child.
Stop it. Why are you looking at me like that?
Mom mentioned that the daughter you left with her was terribly malnourished.
That's because things have been tough lately.
Tough for someone carrying that kind of bag. I pointed to the bag thrown on the living room table. It's clearly a designer brand, isn't it?
I bought it 2 or 3 years ago.
Mom said she is just a year younger than Joshua, yet she looks like she's in preschool, right, Mom?
Yes, she is.
My mom's voice grew even lower.
Her name is Ava, right? Has she been attending kindergarten or school regularly? She seems a bit delayed in her speech.
Of course, she has.
Grandma, is Mom over there?
A frail voice came from the other end.
Yes, Ava. Do you want to talk to Mom?
No. I definitely don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Mom's.
Ava, Mary's daughter, started crying on the other end.
I don't want to end up like my sister.
I see. The grim reality seemed to hide behind those words.
We've been talking for a bit. She seems to have had an older sister.
My mom hinted at something in the past tense. So, what happened?
I don't know anything about that.
Mary hastily tried to grab her bag and clothes.
You can't.
But Mike grabbed her arm, and Joshua secured the bag and clothes. Then, turning to another phone.
Grandpa, now's the time.
With that signal, the front door opened.
Police. We received a report of trespassing and assault, and allegations of child abuse. We are here to detain the woman involved.
Sarah, good job buying us time.
Dad. The police, about 3 of them, secured Mary on the spot.
Are you all right, Miss Smith?
Yes, I am fine. The concierge was also standing by the entrance. The one who had opened the door.
It's been a while, Mary.
Dad.
One of the officers took the clothes and bag from Joshua. A blanket, likely brought in advance, was draped over Mary since they couldn't dress her in those clothes right away. Pointing to the bag, Mike said, "I haven't checked inside, but I believe it contains sleeping pills. I'll be coming along for a blood test. I have a resistance, but it should still be in my system."
We appreciate your cooperation.
Then, over the phone, my mom asked me to switch to camera mode. The camera revealed my mom holding a small girl in her arms.
Officers, this woman seems to have subjected her first child to terrible treatment, leading to the loss of a small life, our first grandchild.
Ava was wearing clothes that Joshua had outgrown long ago. My parents still had Joshua's clothes from when he was little. Joshua, who was quite big for his age when he was about to enter kindergarten. His old clothes fits on his cousin, Ava. I saw his thin, bony wrists through the cuffs.
That's my old clothes. Hi, are you Ava?
Joshua gently spoke to his cousin over the screen. This is the kindness he received from his biological dad.
Yes. Who are you?
I'm Joshua, your cousin. I'm 1 year older, so I guess I'm your big brother.
Big brother.
With that, Ava, perhaps reminded of her lost sibling, started to cry again.
You should come and play sometime.
Okay, the girl nodded meekly through the screen.
Then, Sarah, we'll take her away now. Sorry for the intrusion. Joshua, let's play chess with Grandpa later.
Okay, I'll be waiting.
Right after our exchange.
What is this? Your own little soap opera. And here I am, having lost everything.
Hearing this, I strode towards Mary and slapped her sharply across the face.
No, violent woman. Officer, arrest her for obstructing public duties too.
While restraining Mary, who was struggling, the officer gave me a wry smile and tried to calm the situation. I'm sorry, but I just had to say it to my sister.
What do you want?
Everything you've lost is because of your own actions. It's nobody else's fault. Nothing's coming back to you, and I won't let it. That child will be mine. Don't you ever dare get involved with us again.
Let's go, everyone.
Mike urged my dad.
All right, see you later, Sarah.
I'll be waiting, Dad. Take care, you all. After seeing them off, I collapsed onto the couch.
Are you okay, Mom?
I'm just really tired.
It's good we did the shopping today, ho.
Indeed. What a day it had been. To think it had only been 6 hours since Mom's call. Later, Dad and Mike returned to say Mary would be detained by the police for a while.
No bail. Absolutely not.
Dad declared over a late dinner, his voice strained. She's already divorced, so there's no one on her side to take her in. Let's just get her tried quickly. Eventually, Mary was sentenced to actual jail time. She had caused her family back home great distress, led to the death of one child, and was now abandoned by the remaining child. Some time later, my parents brought Ava to live with us.
You've become so pretty.
Joshua's words made Ava's face turn red.
Where did you learn to talk like that, huh?
Dad, stop. It tickles. Stop.
Joshua laughed, playing with Mike. Watching this scene of an adoptive dad and son, Ava looked on in amazement.
Are you sure, Auntie?
She mumbled about staying with us. I had prepared myself to adopt her, believing it to be the best course of action. Initially, I considered letting her grow up with my parents. However, they feared she might endure stigma as that girl's child in our hometown. My parents planned to move closer to me after retirement. We settled on the idea of traveling together for the summer holidays and Christmas. Ava seems a bit behind in her studies, making it difficult for her to attend the same school as Joshua. Yet, our life promises to be far better than her previous one. With the source of turmoil gone, we can now focus on finding happiness. We have plenty of time.
Well, she's not bad looking. She's not a beauty, but she's not ugly either.
When I first went to greet my boyfriend Kevin's parents, his mother, Susan, gave me a long, rude look and then immediately started criticizing my appearance. We hadn't even gotten through the greetings yet. It was the first time I had met Kevin's parents. My name is Emma. Even though we've only been dating for 6 months, my boyfriend Kevin is 33, 2 years older than me. I'm 31, so we're both of marriageable age. I naturally started thinking about marriage with Kevin, and by the 3rd month of our relationship, I introduced him to my mom. However, I still hadn't met his family yet. It made me nervous, and I began to worry that maybe he wasn't serious about me. Kevin graduated from a prestigious university and is an elite at the company and seems to be on a fast career path. On the other hand, I'm just an ordinary office worker. It was Kevin who confessed to me. He had come to my company for a meeting, saw me by chance, and said it was love at first sight. He gave me his business card, and after some relentless courting, we started dating. Once we started going out, I found Kevin to be kind and considerate. But he's not a weak, overly sensitive guy. He's sporty and cool. He's got lots of friends and is pretty popular. Why hadn't such an amazing guy ever dated anyone before? It wouldn't have been surprising if he'd already married a beautiful woman by now. When I asked him about it, the answer seemed to lie with his overbearing mother, Susan, who adored him to a fault. Apparently, she had tormented all of his previous girlfriends.
My mom's just crazy, you know?
Kevin would say, trying to avoid introducing me to her.
I love you, Emma, and I want to marry you soon. But she's going to flip. She might even say nasty things to you just to ruin it.
Is she really that bad? I mean, calling your mom crazy sounds harsh. I gently pointed out, but Kevin shook his head.
It's not about me. She has to be the center of everything. She thinks her opinion is always right, and everyone else should just go along with it. I've given up trying to deal with her. She's like a different species.
I couldn't believe how much Kevin seemed to dislike his mom.
Doesn't your dad ever say anything to her?
I come from a single-parent household. My dad passed away from illness when I was young, so I don't really know what it's like to have a father around. But it seemed strange to me that Kevin's dad would just let someone that unbearable be. Kevin sighed.
My dad gave up a long time ago. When they first got married, she was normal, but over time she became more and more self-centered. Now, as long as she doesn't interfere with his work, he's fine with it.
I see. Even though I answered, I still couldn't fully believe it. My mom was nothing like that, so I couldn't imagine such a toxic parent existing outside of TV series. But as soon as I met Susan, I realized Kevin wasn't exaggerating when he said, "She's just crazy." I was stunned into silence by Susan's sudden insults. I didn't know what to say.
Mom, that's rude.
Stop it.
Kevin's dad, Paul, scolded her as he glared at her. But Susan didn't seem to care at all.
What? I'm complimenting her. I'm just saying what I see.
She claimed she was complimenting me, but there was no way her words weren't malicious. Paul made a bitter face and fell silent. Kevin, on the other hand, was furious.
That's not a compliment. You're just picking on her.
Susan snorted and hurled even more hurtful words.
And Emma comes from a single-parent household, doesn't she? That's fine for a fling, but a girl raised by just one parent, she's not fit to marry Kevin.
That's how the entire first visit went, one rude comment after another. I was completely drained by the end of it. And even on the way home, there was more drama. When Kevin offered to drive me home, Susan threw a fit.
Why should Kevin have to drive you home when he's already back at our house? Emma, you should tell him you don't need a ride. Go home by yourself.
She yelled.
Mom, I said I wanted to take Emma home, so I'm going to do it. Why are you blaming her? Are you out of your mind?
Kevin was angry and fighting back. He's usually such a calm person. I had never seen Kevin so angry for an entire day, and I started to fully understand what he meant when he said, "She's crazy." No wonder he didn't want me to meet her. If that's how things went on our first meeting, the future doesn't look promising. I started to feel anxious. I loved Kevin, but I couldn't imagine getting along with Susan at all.
I'm really sorry. I'm embarrassed by how horrible my mom's been acting.
On the way home, a dejected Kevin apologized to me. "It's okay, but your mom sure has some unique perspective," I said, trying to be as diplomatic as possible. Kevin let out a big sigh, maybe remembering when the topic of the wedding came up.
She was totally against it, but then she had the nerve to say it should be a huge, extravagant wedding.
Earlier, at Kevin's house, his dad, Paul, had asked, "So, what are you two planning for the wedding?" Both Kevin and I are in our 30s. Paul seemed to think that this gathering was meant to discuss specific plans for the wedding. I, knowing how embarrassed Kevin was about showing his crazy mother to others, tried to offer a solution. "I'm thinking maybe we don't need a big wedding. How about we at least take family photos together?" I added one more point to drive it home. Besides, these days, big weddings are a bit risky.
Yeah, family-only weddings are becoming more common.
Kevin quickly agreed, and so did Paul.
It's different from my time, but if that's what you want, Emma, I'm fine with it.
It looked like my suggestion would stick, but then, for some reason, Susan fiercely opposed it.
No, absolutely not. Are you trying to ruin our family's reputation? Skipping out on such an important occasion is totally unacceptable. You and Kevin have no sense at all.
She shouted, glaring at me.
Marriage isn't just about you, it's about the family. What you want doesn't matter. The whole point of a wedding is to show the world that you're married. A proper wedding is the only way to legitimize your marriage.
Susan was adamant and wouldn't budge. The wedding preparations started, but due to Susan's pressure about family honor, what was meant to be a small gathering turned into a large event, with invitations going out to not only family but also Kevin's and Paul's bosses, co-workers, business partners, and even distant relatives. Meanwhile, my side of the family wasn't nearly as large. I didn't intend to invite distant relatives, so the guest list between the bride's side and the groom's side ended up very uneven.
Oh my, Emma, your family doesn't have many people, does it? And none of them seem particularly impressive either.
Susan said with a sneer, looking at the guest list. In the end, all she wanted was to put me down. The big day arrived. Most of the invited guests showed up, and with no major issues, the wedding began smoothly and peacefully. Friends of ours performed skits, and our old teachers gave speeches. The reception was lively and cheerful. As I mingled with friends and coworkers who came over to chat, I couldn't help but keep an eye on Susan. She was going from table to table, talking animatedly. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but based on her smug expression and the uncomfortable looks on the faces of the people she was talking to, I had a good guess. She was probably boasting about Kevin and badmouthing me. What worried me more was that everyone Susan talked to was drinking with her. Susan, likely thirsty from talking so much, kept finishing her drinks and moving to the next table. Her face was red, and she was unsteady on her feet. Kevin and I watched nervously, though we didn't say anything. When I looked around for Paul, I saw him engrossed in conversation with his bosses and coworkers, completely oblivious to the situation. I was just hoping everything would end smoothly, but the real incident happened at the very end of the wedding. During the part where the bride reads a letter to her parents, I expressed my gratitude to my late father and to my mother, who had raised me. My mom was already teary-eyed, holding my dad's picture close to her chest, listening to my words. Mom, thank you so much for raising me on your own after Dad passed away. When I was little, I used to feel sad during the parent-child races at the school sports day because my dad wasn't there. On Father's Day, everyone was drawing pictures of their dads, but I couldn't because I didn't remember mine. I even cried once when one of the troublemakers in my class teased me, saying, "You don't have a dad, do you?" During my teenage years, I went through a phase where I was irritated all the time and rebelled against my mom, refusing to talk to her. Looking back, I wish I had done more to show her my appreciation and cherished our time together more. As I read through my memories, I couldn't hold back my tears, and my makeup was a mess. I even started hiccuping, but somehow, I managed to finish reading the letter. From all over the room, I could hear quiet sobbing as others were moved to tears by my words. One of my tipsy uncles shouted, "You can do it, Emma," offering me his gentle support, and the atmosphere in the room was filled with warmth. But then, there was Susan, already quite drunk, with an expression full of disdain.
And now the bride and groom present special gifts to their mothers.
The MC announced, moving on to the next part of the program. Kevin and I handed our mothers teddy bears that weighed the same as we did when we were born.
First, let's hear a few words from the bride's mother.
The MC said, handing the microphone to my mom.
Oh, were you this tiny when you were born, Emma? Thank you so much. You've grown into such a wonderful young woman, and I'm so proud.
my mom said, smiling warmly at me. Then, turning to the guests, she gave a beaming smile.
Thank you all for watching over Emma and for being here today.
When the MC turned to hand the microphone to Susan, she suddenly snatched it from her. Everyone was shocked by her behavior. Without even a word of thanks for the teddy bear, she said,
Emma's mother's speech was very noble, but let's be clear, it's not like she raised Emmy all by herself. She must have had help from men around her along the way, right? I certainly wouldn't want my son to marry the daughter of such a disgraceful single mother, but don't worry, I'll discipline her properly from now on. I suppose I'll be generous enough to let this slide.
The room fell into a shocked silence.
I'm very forgiving,
Susan added with a smug smile, completely oblivious to the horrified reactions around her. Neither Kevin nor I, not even Paul, could find a way to stop her in time. Kevin was speechless. Paul, who had been happily tipsy just moments ago, turned beet red, opening and closing his mouth in shock. I couldn't stand her talking about my mom that way. I glared at Susan and, in a firm voice, declared, "No, I don't need your generosity." Even without a microphone, my voice carried through the quiet room. So what if I didn't have a dad? Is that really such a terrible thing? Everyone dies someday, whether sooner or later. It's not something we can control. You say I'm from a poor single-parent family, but even rich people with both parents can still do terrible things. My mom and I have lived honestly, with nothing to be ashamed of. We don't need your pity.
See, this is exactly what I mean. Daughters of single mothers have such sharp tongues. It's going to take a lot of work to discipline her properly.
Susan turned to the room, trying to rally support.
What are you talking about? Are you out of your mind?
Paul shouted, furious.
Og, that's disgusting.
One of my friends snapped, and soon the guests started murmuring.
What's wrong with her?
Oh, Emma, she doesn't deserve this.
Aren't you ashamed?
Susan must have realized that the reaction wasn't what she had expected. Her face gradually shifted to one of confusion, as if thinking, wait, what? But even as she was met with icy stares, she didn't back down.
I'm just doing this for the family's honor,
she insisted defiantly.
Don't lie and say it's for the family. Mom, you're just prioritizing your own feelings. Neither Dad nor I have ever cared whether Emma was raised by a single parent.
Kevin sharply pointed out. Paul glared at Susan as well.
Talking about single parents like it's a problem. How is that Emma's responsibility? It's not her fault. There are people from normal two-parent households like you who turn out far worse.
Susan, momentarily intimidated by their fury, tried to defend herself.
But children from single-parent homes don't turn out well, do they? I couldn't bear the thought of my precious Kevin suffering.
Paul had finally had enough.
I'm done. We're getting a divorce. Don't you feel ashamed of how drunk and utterly disrespectful you've been? Don't you realize how embarrassing you're acting? The president of my company, our business partners, and Kevin's bosses are all here. Are you trying to ruin our careers?
Susan was clearly not expecting Paul to bring up divorce.
I'm sorry,
she immediately cried out, pleading deeply.
I'll get along with Emma and her mother from now on. Please, don't divorce me. Emma, please say something.
I don't think so. You've insulted not only me but my mom as well. Why would I suddenly be on your side after that pathetic apology? I replied coldly. Kevin stared at his mother, his expression equally icy.
Exactly. You think you can just undo all the damage you've caused. You can't ring a bell, Mom.
At that moment, my mother, who had been quietly watching everything unfold, sighed. She placed my father's photo on the table and gently stroked it.
My husband wanted to live, you know. He wouldn't have wanted anyone to call Emma a child from a single-parent family. Of course, he would have wanted to be here for our beautiful daughter's wedding, don't you think? I'm sure he wanted to walk her down the aisle, but he couldn't. Having a complete family isn't something to take for granted. It's a true blessing. Susan, you've destroyed that happiness yourself,
she said, her face filled with mixed emotions. I wrapped my arm around my mother's shoulders, and Kevin stood on the other side. Then Kevin turned to the room and declared,
I think it's pretty clear to everyone who deserves more respect as a person, my mom or Emma's. The family I want to protect is Emma and her mother, who raised her so well. They're my family now.
Kevin looked directly at Susan.
Mom, thank you for raising me. But please, don't disappoint me any further.
Susan seemed stunned by Kevin's words and froze. Then, the room erupted into applause and supportive cheers.
Don't let that toxic mother get you down. Stay strong.
From the reactions around her, Susan finally seemed to realize the gravity of what she had done. Susan, no decent person would ever ruin their own son's wedding. When I quietly said that, Susan could no longer keep her head up and broke down, crying loudly. After that, the wedding became somewhat legendary, and word spread among the guests. It even became a topic at my office, and I felt embarrassed for a while. But most of the talk was about Susan's outrageous behavior, and people sympathized with me. Paul wasted no time in contacting a lawyer and filed for divorce. Citing her constant unreasonable behavior and reckless spending, he significantly reduced the amount of alimony Susan would receive. She was kicked out of their home and is now living a lonely, miserable life in a rundown apartment. It was then that I realized the prestigious family background only applied to Paul. Susan had come from a regular working-class background. She was someone who uses another's power to their advantage. Paul also demanded full compensation for the damages and emotional distress caused by Susan's actions at the wedding. Despite the wedding disaster, Kevin and I are doing great. He stood up for me, and I've fallen even more in love with him. Susan, who had been troubling Kevin, is no longer in the picture. Now, Kevin and I can focus on building a happy family together.